Going live.
Let's see if my YouTube's muted.
And it says we're live. How about that?
Good.
Woo!
Hello, everybody. And welcome to Blue Marble. I am joined by Alan Evans and Farmer's Boy.
Good evening.
Just for
Good evening.
A Tuesday afternoon get together and chat for no good reason. And I'm sure some others will be joining us here in Discord. But, and for anybody that wants to, let's see if we can find a link. I'll bet we can. I'll put this out on YouTube.
Oh, hello, Gary. I see you've joined us.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, 100, presumably 100%, the Earth is flat. Well, yeah. Amazingly, locally, it sometimes is quite flat. I mean, I grew up on the edge of the fens, and let me tell you, oh boy, that's flat.
Oh yeah,
Indeed. Yeah, I mean, even my side of Norfolk's pretty close to flat, isn't it?
Yes, that is.
yeah.
But on a planetary scale,
not so much on
no.
a planetary scale.
No,
not so much at all.
On a planetary scale, it's smoother than a billiard ball.
Yep. And there's no name out there in the chat. Mark Schwabe, Charlie Welch, Gary, Quinlan, 1977, Sean Hawkins, and Clive Wells, Anamorphic Mind, the Snark, and whoever else wants to show up. So how are we doing, guys? Oh, there's Shaky. Hey, Shake.
Hey.
Hi, Blue. On YouTube, I heard the others quite well. You're a bit low on YouTube.
Hmm? Oh, okay. Want me to crank mine up a little bit? I guess I could.
On YouTube, yeah.
Well, usually the less you hear out of me, the better anyway. So, there we go. Hopefully that's a little better. I'm okay in Discord?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah,
okay.
fine in here.
All right. All righty. So, Shike, what's going on over at Bev's right now?
You've been winding them up, haven't you?
No, they're going over the Black Swan in early version, I think.
What, again?
No, Bev never did. He never saw the Black Swan before.
Oh. I find that hard to believe.
Well, he is a serial teller of not the truth.
Way putting it, yeah.
So far, Pepper Organist realized it doesn't debunk the Earth has a radius, only that it don't have a radius of 3959. That's good.
Yeah. Hello, Judy.
Oh,
How are you?
just fine.
Yeah, there was an interesting change going on over there between Sean G and Bev early in his show today, talking about surveying. And Bev just continuously proves that there's no way in hell he could legitimately have any kind of surveying credentials. He knows nothing about anything. Jesus.
He's got a qualification and everything.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, don't know how that worked. I sure wish he could show us, or or tell us where we could find the book that he studied out of, because there's something wrong.
Shit.
Apparently, every time he moves the auto level, he's doing needs to do a 2-peg test.
Yeah, 2-peg test, which means you got to move the auto level again.
Yeah, I mean, you made the 2-peg test. You cited to 2 back and forth. You move the auto level. You need to do a peg test again.
Right. Now you move it back where it was to begin with, and you need to do another 2-peg test. What is wrong with that?
No, not necessarily. You move it once to the close peg, then you move it to the middle and see that it's okay. Take the measurement and repeat that again. And you wasted half the day on peg tests.
Yeah, exactly.
What's Bev up to? I've been kind of out of the Bev loop for a while.
Oh, gosh.
Yep. The same old shit.
Yeah, the stupidity just gets worse. Never any better.
I stopped paying attention to him once he started off on this horizontals are level and all horizontals are parallel and stuff you can easily disprove. And what really got me is that he still can't admit that the surface of a sphere is a 2-dimensional structure, despite the fact that his own god Euclid says so.
Yeah, that's curious. Wonder how that worked.
A surface is that which has length and breadth or something, I think it says.
That's not a 2D. That Pepper told me what you confusing length and breadth with 2D.
That's 2 dimensions.
But I never said length and breadth is 2D. I said surface has length and breadth, and it was Bev that insisted that that's 2D. And Pepper tell me that I'm confused.
Right.
Well, length and breadth is only 2 dimensions. So
I don't know. Euclid doesn't say anything about dimensions. There's no such concept of dimensions.
Yeah, Euclid really didn't cover that.
Didn't cover what, please? Depth?
Length and depth. No, he didn't talk about that.
Well, because he's talking 2 dimensions. One of the big breakthroughs in science was non-Euclidean geometry. I think it was 1800s or late 1700s. I guess Bev still is back in 1750.
No, actually, he's back in something or the other BC, I guess.
Really?
I think I don't know, when was Euclid around?
Oh, I don't remember. But I guess what I mean is the non-Euclidean geometry.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Came up in I think the 1800s was the late 1700s. I gotta look into it again.
Is Euclidean geometry really Euclidean geometry? Did he invented the geometry from scratch?
Well, the Babylonians were big on that.
It's not like people didn't use geometry back when he was there.
Of course not. Euclid just collected a whole bunch of concepts and stuck them together.
Right, put them in a book.
Yeah, right. In a very logical sort of way. It's a little archaic to go back through and study all that stuff. If it's if you're interested in it, fine. But
a lot of it's written in Latin if you go far enough back.
Yeah, we don't have any problem at all teaching people analytic geometry without ever mentioning Euclid.
You go back go back far enough, and then you can start reading stuff in Latin, and that's a skill that most people don't have anymore.
Oh,
yeah, you
or
might.
ancient
I don't.
Greek. I thought most of the early scientific stuff was written in Attic Greek.
Well, that's we go way back. It's you start getting in Greek, and you go far enough back, it's written in Babylonian, but that's it's written in cuneiform, and that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. One of one of the things here lately that seems to be driving them up the wall is the idea that we can actually show them that verticals, plumb lines, are not parallel. And it's not that hard to do. Anybody with an auto level, or anybody with a theodolite can do it. Somebody posted a video by the main surveyor, and I think this one's been around for a while.
All right, but they just say that he's misinterpreting or blah blah blah. To death.
Well, what the problem is, Blue, is that your eyes are curved, and so
Okay.
provides an optical illusion.
Well, of course, how silly of me.
Where has Lemon been? I haven't seen Lemon in a while. Is he okay?
He's been slumming over at politics and religion. I run into him as physicist a lot over there, where he just takes on the role as a presuppositionalist Christian, and the flat Earth stuff is more of a distraction. He won't talk about it.
Oh, okay. Well, tell him we miss him and thinking about him. Every time I hear someone talk about the eyes being curved and stuff being crammed in, stuff being crammed into your eye, I think of him. Lemon
Well, for
optics.
yourself.
Do not tell him we're missing him unless you're speaking for yourself only. I'm not missing
Oh,
him.
okay. Oh, that's true. Okay, tell him where we every time I hear something about how optics work that is total bullshit, I think about him.
He came up in a voice chat in a random over at T-Jump server one night, and so I tried to summon him by saying his name 3 times. It didn't work, so I guess his power abandoned him.
No, but it's supposed to be 5 times by the original story. But yes, I'm missing him like I'm missing an extra hole in my fucking head.
Yeah.
I'm missing him like that tumor that they lanced off my back. Yeah. He grows on you
exactly
the same way.
Okay, tell him that every time I hear someone misinterpret optics, I think about him because he misinterprets optics a lot.
Well,
He
that's one way to
misinterprets
look at it.
everything.
Another way to look at it is he is a pioneer in the field of floptics.
Floptics.
He and Gary Wybanga and Travis, the Plain Truth, whatever, they're all pioneers in floptics.
Floptics. I think that's even better.
I like that. I like that. That's about right too.
Yep, they're floor physicists, flathematicians.
That's another one. Flathematicians, I've heard.
Yeah.
What was the first one?
Floor physicists.
Floor physicists.
That's pretty good.
Thanks. I'm nothing if not a fountain of pithy nicknames for folks.
Yes, you are.
Roll Tide, by the way, Blue.
Oh, Roll Tide. I think I may play this main surveyor video. It only lasts about 8 minutes. If you guys want to watch. Hopefully you can see it. Hopefully you see that now.
Yeah, we got that.
Let me turn this thing on and we'll let it play and listen to some interesting stuff. This is real stuff, not derp stuff.
Reciprocal zenith angle measurement. I'm looking down towards that stop sign there. I'm going to set a point down there. And here, I made a kick mark on the ground. I'm going to...
Is the volume supposed to be this low?
Muted.
And then we'll have some more points to set. I'm down here by the stop sign. And I believe I need only see between that granite sign there and the stop sign here.
Well, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen...
I didn't set anything back on the first spike I set.
The microphone showing us being muted. In your share, Blue. In the screen you're sharing, if you look in the bottom right-hand side next to YouTube, I can see a muted symbol.
There's a bad echo coming through.
I don't see it.
I do.
Bottom right-hand corner by YouTube.
Yeah.
All I got settings. Beats me.
As you were. It wasn't. Oh, there's an echo.
Ah, good
It's
grief.
me.
The echo's on your side.
I got
when
the
we
echo.
talk. Yeah, when we talk to you.
Well, I'll tell you what I might have to do. I may just have to mute Discord and try it, but then I won't be able to hear you guys. I don't know why this isn't working.
If you mute yourself, you should. Wait, stop echoing. I think it's when you play. Yeah. No
Ooh.
echo.
Well, let me try it again.
Angle measurement. I'm looking down towards that stop sign there. I'm going to set a point down there. And here, I made a kick mark on the ground. I'm going to set a point here. And then we'll have some more points to set. I'm down here by the stop sign. And I believe I need only see between that granite sign there and the stop sign here to be visible. Now, I didn't set anything back on the first spike I set, so hopefully we can see this. But looking this way, because I'm also going to go in this direction, I need to keep on one side of those poles, but inside of that 40-mile-an-hour sign. So I think right about there is going to do it. So we'll set that. There's that view again. And now I've got this set up. This is point number 2. This has to be set up, and number 3 has to be set up before I even go up to 1 up there, that first point, and set up my total station. But the height here, I think, is 5.005. That's what I'm going with. I'll write that down in the book. All right, so I'm just double checking that I can see my control point. It's hard to see. The color kind of gets washed out in this video, but I can see the cone plainly with my eyes. And so I can see it from this point. So that's good. We'll go set the third point. I'm on the back side of that 40-mile-an-hour sign, down here where I want it to be. And I can see the cone with my eye quite plainly. I'm not sure if it's showing up in the video, but this is the spot I want to be in. So I'll get this set up. I'm going to call this 484 here at point number 3. 484 at number 3. I'm set up here at point number 1. My height is 4955. So I've got my 3 heights written in the book: 4955 at number 1, 5.005 that you saw me set up first at number 2, and at number 3 with 4.84. And now I'm going to shoot from 1 to 2. I am pointed at the target, and my zenith angle right there is 90, 44, and you'll see it flop around a little bit between 50 and 49 seconds. It seems to be spending the most time on 50, so we'll write that down. Oh, it says 49. I'll write 49 then. Okay, so I wrote down 269, 15, 14 is what I wrote down. It was on 14 the longest. That's in phase 2. And so that was set 1, and now I'm going to do 4 more sets of zenith angle measurements in phase 1 and phase 2. Okay, I did 5 sets from point 1 to point 2. I wrote down the slope distance each time as well, and those are the weather conditions currently. Now I'll go to point number 2, back sight number 1, shoot 5 sets of zenith angles to 1, shoot 5 sets of zenith angles to number 3. And shoot that horizontal angle difference that's going on there between 1 and 3. All right, this was 4955 before, and it still is. This is point number 1. I'm gonna be going down to point number 2 near the stop sign and shooting some zenith angles from there to here and from there to 3. All right, I'm at point number 2. I'm at 5.005. Looking back at number 1, I'll measure zenith angles to there and whatever the horizontal angle happens to be. And then I'll shoot zenith angles to 3 with whatever the horizontal angles happen to be. I just finished up from 2 to 1 and from 2 to 3. So 2 to 1 is that way, 2 to 3 is that way. I think I still have the target right there. Yep, that's what that looks like. Pretty cool. I've got 484 here at point number 3, and I'm gonna shoot zenith angles back to number 2. All right, I just finished up from 3 to 2. Now we have lots of calculations to do. Last night I went and did my calculations for these zenith angles. And quick review, you need to add the face 1 and face 2 measurement. Ideally it will add to 360 degrees exactly, but it won't because there's error in every measurement. And so this is how we deal with the error, and we correct the face 1 measurement. And this is what the mean ends up being. This is from 1 to 2. Here it is for 2 back to 1. Here it is from 2 to 3. And here it is from 3 back to 2. Now, what we did was we were on 1, measured zenith angles to 2, and we went to 2, measured zenith angles back to 1, also measured zenith angles over to 3. Then we went to 3 and measured zenith angles back to 2. While at 2, I measured this angle between 1, 2, and 3. So they're almost perpendicular to each other, these two lines of sight. Now, we add the mean from 1 to 2 and from 2 back to 1, and they add up to more than 180 degrees. Same for 2 to 3 and 3 back to 2, they add up to more than 180 degrees. Now, review of geometry. When we have a straight line that intersects two other straight lines, we need only add the angles on one side of that intersecting straight line to see whether or not these other two straight lines are parallel. If these other two straight lines are parallel, then A and B would add up to 180 degrees exactly. It's more than 180 degrees, which means that these two plumb lines are not parallel, and in fact, they diverge with elevation. So from 1 to 2, those plumb lines were not parallel. Then also, from 2 to 3, because these two interior angles on one side of the intersecting straight line add up to more than 180 degrees, we know that these two plumb lines are not parallel. So, in this direction, plumb lines diverge upwardly. Same for this direction. That's pretty cool stuff. This is basic surveying. Surveying 101. My total station did not know where on the face of the earth it was. It didn't have any coordinate system set, didn't have any coordinates set. I needed only to turn angles, measure slope distances, and then break out the calculator, pencil, and field book. So this is what I used mainly, right? So the total station only measures zenith angles, horizontal angles, and slope distances. That's it. You just got to write it down, which is what I did. And we worked through it to find out what that all meant. Cool stuff. I hope you enjoyed the return of the plumb lines.
Well, there we go. Hopefully I still got you guys. Or not.
Yep.
Okay.
Quick. Desperately trying to find the mouse so I can unmute.
Okay.
And there's the echo.
You got the echo again?
Yep.
I have no idea why. Let me stop.
It's
I
coming
think it
from the
only
third screen.
I
Okay.
think it only happens if you're listening to the stream, because I think Blue is feeding the Discord back into the Discord.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, because it's gone now.
Okay. Yeah, because that video, I should have gone to his channel and done that. Would have worked better, I guess. Oh well. We got through it. You guys could hear it, right? Hello, Rumpus.
Hey, Blue. nice to see you back.
Yeah, man.
Hello, mate.
Hello, farmers. How are you?
I'm all right. I'd kind of worked out that it wasn't going to happen this year.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just personal
No,
stuff.
no. You know, because all of a sudden you think, oh, we're into the middle of September. It's not going to happen, is it?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I mean, farmers. Just in
Yeah.
case, farmers has been really great with the whole thing, and so it's it's very disappointing for him and all the people. Obviously, thousands of people wanting to do it, but just annoying personal problems. Well, minor, very mundane. I'll elaborate on it at some stage. It was just minor, mundane stuff that just interfered with it. Do
you know the most disappointing thing was that I was kind of hoping I was going to get to meet George.
Oh God, yeah.
And
Same here.
yeah. And of course, obviously, that ain't going to happen. So yeah, what a bummer.
I mean, you know, whenever we would always be sharing maths problems and things and trying to solve this, that, and the other, and having the odd argument about it. And so it's
yeah.
But fortunately, Blue's Discord server is actually quite good for having chats about maths problems. So I'll probably have to do that there instead now, or physics forums. But it was really useful having done. The great thing about George, I mean, he helped me with the design. I'm going to dedicate Rec to him. But early on, when I was designing how I've got these poles and things sliding around, he came up with the idea actually of putting the slidey thing inside the pole, inside a tube. And the great thing is, because he had so much kit, he was able to just go outside his door, grab a bit of 4x2, shove it in a piece of drain pipe he's got, and saying, yeah, well, it actually didn't fit for me, but it fitted for him. And because I was not going to quite do it that way, and so it was just great to be able to have someone who could just go away, walk out his door, and just try something that was appropriate for the design I was having. And yeah, bloody hell.
Yeah.
And he was going to blast all a slap up meal as well. He said he was going to treat you. Going to get treated to a slap up meal in London as well. He was going to buy you.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, so that's a bit drastic, sort of, getting out of that, isn't it? It's a drastic way of getting out of that.
Well, I think he was looking forward to the social side. Actually, he was looking forward to meeting you and me and others, the other 10 or so, 12 people who were going to be there, and he wanted a treat.
He absolutely was, no doubt about it.
Yeah, well, I think we was all looking forward to meeting him, but
yeah, definitely,
certainly was.
The fates decided otherwise, I'm afraid.
Yeah, what a
yeah. Well, he was quite excited about that, and but then, Con got sick, and he went away.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Though I did see on these obituary, it did actually say he died after a brief illness, because he had COVID for the last 2 months, or he got over it about a month or so ago. But prior to that, he'd had COVID for about 2 months.
right.
That knocked him for 6. And then obviously Khan's situation knocked him for 6 again. And then he had a problem with his leg as well that was causing he was in agony sometimes with this stupid leg he was going to have an operation on, and we couldn't decide whether or not to have the operation before he came here or afterwards. So he had and of course his house bloody burnt down. I mean, so he had 4 quite serious challenges in his life to deal with all at the same time. I don't know whether that was part of the issue, but he says on the obituary now that he had a brief illness, so I don't know if he got something new. And
oh well.
But anyway, farmers, I'm missed seeing you again with your keen and enthusiastic. If you want to have a team of people, you definitely want farmers on it. He's always he's reliable, and he does his stuff, and he turns up on time.
Yeah, more than could be said for you.
Yeah, thanks, farmers. Yeah, the trouble is, I had to make. I don't know. I had to make lists of about 17 pages of the things I had to do and I had to bring. And
I know. I saw it.
I waved them at farmers occasionally, and just trying to do that. And sometimes I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and worked for 6 hours solid to do stuff, and then I was still late. But anyway,
well, just to follow up on that video we just watched from Main Surveyor.
it looked good, didn't it?
Yeah, this is information that Larry Scott gave me. A reciprocal zenith measurement that he made from Hagerstown Airport to Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. It's about a 10-mile stretch there. And
how long? Sorry, I missed the start of the video. How long was the Main Surveyor's stretch?
Oh, he didn't say, or if he did, I didn't catch it. I think he may have had it written down, but it wasn't a vast distance. It was, I would
like
guess, less than 1,000 feet. Probably well less than 1,000 feet. He was shooting at reflectors on his poles and stuff. But this, and he was getting 14 or 15 arc seconds excess.
You know we've got Larry in the chat, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Larry. Where is he at? Is he in Discord?
He's in here. Yeah, there he is.
I'm here. Yeah, that 11.5 mile shot from the airport up to Karak Mountain was Betsy and I did that. And the thing is, when you're talking like 15 seconds, you got to have a good instrument. You got to be on your game. But at 11 miles, you can use a medium grade instrument because the difference is 8 arc minutes. I mean, it's so huge you can't even begin to overlook that.
And how many? What fraction of a degree is 8 arc minutes? I could go and calculate it. Just
8/60ths.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that? 1/12.
15th.
15th.
A 15th. It's a lot. It's 480 arc seconds. It's hundreds of feet.
Yeah.
The tower is like.
I was just thinking in comparison to the size of the sun. So it's a 15th of a degree, where sun is 0.6. So it's about an eighth of the size of the sun. Right.
Yeah. Well, the tower.
That's about a
tower
fourth.
is over 200. The tower is over 200 feet tall, so you'd completely miss the tower.
Can't we just tell the difference by the excess angle he measured? About 52 arc seconds per mile. So you can tell.
Yeah.
Per statute mile. You know what that means in nautical miles?
Who uses nautical miles on land?
Scoy miles.
Scoy miles.
Talking about Scoy miles. He's a guest now at Bev's.
No,
He's a mighty fine fellow with a sky mile. I'll have you know.
Just a quick aside. I happened to come over from his, and Bev didn't understand how to work out where this drop was going to come, the square root of the observer times 1.22, and he couldn't work out what the hell was going on with that simple formula for drop. He had no idea how it was created, where it came from, and he got it mixed up with the Rayleigh criteria. He said that looks a bit like the Rayleigh criteria. This guy cannot do basic geometry. And it just as
Of course he can't. Of course he can't. I was an idiot.
But farmers, you keep on saying he understands it all and he's faking it, but he doesn't. He can't do basic maths. He doesn't have any idea what's going on with drop, for instance. He cannot calculate it.
He can do everything but drop.
Yes, that's right.
I still maintain that you can know you're playing silly buggers and still be a complete idiot. See Brian Mabbitt. I think he's of a similar ilk, because if you talk to him about anything else, he's perfectly sane and rational. And he has, I know he's all but retired, but he has spent a lot of years doing very practical, hands-on stuff. But at the same time, the guy's a complete idiot. And I think a lot of that can apply to Bev. I think he knows he's intentionally being deceptive and lying and all the rest of it. He knows he's doing that, but at the same time, he's an idiot.
Yeah, it's both. It's absolutely right. He is an idiot and he's a lying, deceiving git. Yes, he's both of those.
Yes. So
But he doesn't.
he knows what he's doing, but at
No,
the
he
same
doesn't.
time, no. But at the same time, he hasn't got a fucking clue. It
Yeah,
depends what you're talking about.
Yeah, and
A
as I say,
true paradox.
but when he couldn't work out, it was about a quarter of an hour ago. I happened to catch him before I came here. It was just amazing. He had no idea this formula, which we all familiar with, and how to work. We could work it out in a minute or two, just with a couple of lines and things. If you haven't done it before, and he had absolutely no idea where this square root came from, what it was doing, what this 1.22, how you'd go about it. He didn't. He said, for instance, you can't measure the distance to the horizon, not realizing you could do it by triangulation or putting something on the horizon. I mean, there's just a number of anyway. I don't know whether I'm distracting us from the main theme here, but anyway, just another interesting aside there.
Are you saying that he's so stupid that he can trip on a square root?
He could trip over. I'd imagine he's tripping over his shoelaces every day, or having trouble fixing his trousers in place. The guy is a moron of a first order.
Velcro.
That might be the only way you could do it.
Or slip-ons. I don't know. Yeah.
Yes, I don't want to.
The best thing is when he was in a blog conversation with Ordnance Survey UK, and he about called them liars.
Yeah, it's just incredible.
How a Brit can call Ordnance Survey UK like off or lying or making up stuff. I mean, that's one of their greatest accomplishments of the UK is their geodesy and mapping of the world.
Yep.
Wait, Larry, but those that he talked to are just Twitter.
Okay.
When he's backed into a corner, all he does is call their honesty into question.
Yeah, I'll call him model afflicted. He's afflicted. He's the one who's afflicted here. He's afflicted with his low IQ.
Good afternoon, peoples.
Hey, what's going on, Brendan?
Hello.
Chaiki is on the outs with Bev. Is that right?
We were just discussing the fact that Bev on the other channel was just being an idiot and couldn't work out what the drop formula was all about, because we were talking about it, I can't remember now why. Something to do with Bev. Oh, that branch logic is over. That's right. We were discussing sky miles. That was it. And then apparently he's over at the moment.
Skoy moils.
Yeah, God. What a
and part of the problem is it's so often described as drop, and really it's departure from the horizontal at the instrument, departure to return to the same elevation as the instrument. So it's not a drop in elevation; it's a departure from the tangent.
Well, I can still never decide if people like Bev are pose or actually that stupid. It's hard to imagine being that stupid. But
it is difficult, isn't it?
Both. He's both.
Yeah, and it's hard to imagine someone staying in character for so long.
Yeah, he's fundamentally stupid, but he does know the odd thing. And then I think some of I believe Farmers is assuming that because he's a dishonest git, that he's underneath that he understands some of it, but I don't think he understands any of it, and he's just a dishonest git as well.
Yeah,
I think it might be that.
Sorry,
I think it might be that he knows enough to know he's wrong, but just doesn't want to have to admit it.
But you see. But he couldn't do this simple calculation. He couldn't do this. You see, the fact that he can't do something simple and understand when someone offers him a calculation for drop, he had no idea where it came from, how to go about it. And if you ever pose him a geometry problem, he can never do it. So I don't think he does understand any of this.
Well, Red's rhetoric with Bev was interesting because he asked Bev if he knows, Jeranism and Globebusters and those, and he said no. And there's no way in hell that Bev does not know those people.
No, he claims he knows of them, but doesn't know them. That's his claim.
Yeah, well, that was proven wrong because we saw many tweets of Bev praising Tyrannism.
Really?
Mhm.
I missed that. Okay, didn't know that.
Yeah, and then you showed him. Then Red showed him, his tweets where he says, "I'm a flat earther," and Bev just flat out denies it.
Yeah, the
The
thing, he
one-
has got a slight get out on that. He says, you think this. So he has got a slight get out there that he's basically saying, if you think this, then you must be a flat earther. He didn't.
The problem is that since it was towards the end of 2019 when he reinvented himself and stopped calling himself a flat earther. But what he hasn't done is removed all the evidence of him being a flat earther. There are tweets, there are videos, there are photos. All of his gear's got research flat earth stickers all over it. It's everywhere.
Right.
And what he hasn't done is gone back and get rid of all the evidence. So now he has to sit there like he did with Reds and lie and say, "Oh, I was just joking. I was just poking fun at flat earthers. Oh, it's just the way you're interpreting it." No, he's a flat earther. You know he's a flat earther because you only have to ask him what the shape of the Earth is.
Well,
and then watch him squirm because he can't give you a straight answer.
Yeah,
so
but
he's
You will never get a straight answer out of him.
His minions will buy that hook, line, and sinker anyway. So why should he do it?
Well, because they're all doing the same thing. They're all denying being flat earthers. They're all just following his script. He says, "I'm not a flat earther because of this, that, and the other," and they just parrot what he says.
Yeah.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can almost trace the
But there are
genetics of
hills and there are
someone's
valleys and
daddy.
there are, this and that. Yeah.
Right.
Jeez. No joke, Bev. And I have asked him point blank many, many times. Okay, let's don't talk about the land part. Let's talk about the 70% of it that's water. Is that flat or not? And you can't get a straight answer out of him.
Well, one thing he has said, though, is I sort of got round that by saying, do you believe that points of constant elevation form a straight line or a plane? And he said that he does. And I said, well, that makes you a flat earther.
There you go.
So then that gets around the problem of topography. If you say the elevations of a constant elevation is formed a straight line.
Excuse me, I need to go fix some tea now.
Well, no, but he has said that he has agreed that on the Earth, points of constant elevation form a plane or a line. He's agreed to that, and I said that makes you a flat earther because that means the underlying geometry of the thing you're talking about is a plane. And then that did actually knock him for 6. He's now starting to talk about these elevation diagrams and claiming that if you see an elevation diagram, that the horizontal axis is horizontal for the Earth as well. And I think Blue was pointing out that in fact you couldn't even draw it using old tools. Even if you wanted to draw it, you have to draw. So something like Google Earth shows you the elevation path, and indeed QE did the same thing, didn't he? About a year and a bit ago, when he said Google Earth is a flat Earth model. Look, the elevation profile. Look, that's a flat base. And it, not realizing, of course, that that's the base is actually an arc. And that the elevation just showing you with respect to the arc, and then there's a distortion, of course.
He started with Lake Pontchartrain, didn't he? And then he went to the Atlantic Ocean and went, look, the sea level's the same on both sides. It's flat.
A constant elevation is a straight line.
Yeah.
That was not a year ago. That was like
longer.
More than 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah. I did.
Maybe 3.
I debunked him.
It's more than a year, but yeah.
When he did that, that's been probably 3 years ago. Something
and
like
so
that.
you zoom out, but at what point do you zoom out of Google Earth and it stops becoming a flat Earth map? At what elevation?
But they don't zoom out that far, do they? Because
Well, how far can you zoom? How far can you zoom out on the flat Google Earth map?
Have you guys talked about the tiff between the Globebusters crowd and the Nathan crowd?
I hadn't gotten into that yet. No.
I mean, I don't know, Blue, if you want to carry on with this. I don't. We've distracted you from what you were trying to do. I don't hope Are you happy to?
Well, yeah. The only point that I wanted to make, only other final point I wanted to make is that it is so hard to find a decent way to measure this departure from horizontal that Larry's talking about. That's really hard to do.
You mean vertical? Do you mean diverging verticals? You said horizontal then.
Diverging.
Verticals. Is that not what you're trying to establish here?
Well, any way you want to say this. Level, elevation, departs from horizontal with distance. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
and it's hard to
what
find.
My rect thing, and of course,
yeah, right. It's
Larry
hard to find a way.
say,
It's hard to find a way to show that. But we've got literally tens of thousands of examples of what we've got on the screen right now. Things that like Larry's done, that clearly show that the verticals are diverging. That is a much easier measurement, I think, to make.
Yeah.
What do you think, Larry?
Well, put up that other I have another graphic that I put in the chat, just below the theodolite. And you recall that picture where Bev had taken, or somebody had taken a picture through Bev's auto level at Blackpool Tower, and the crosshair goes right across the top. Well, this is the same thing. I'm on the left.
Where is it, Larry?
It's in
Discord.
Oh, I put it in Schiller's stuff. Maybe that was a mistake.
Okay, well, let me look.
Oh, Blue, I don't. So just I just want to express sympathy for you, Blue, for having to, when you attempted to explain to using that Blackpool picture that Bev took and tried to explain to him, we're not interested in the stupid measuring rod, the horizontal reticule in the altar level is all that we need to be worrying about. And then you had to put up with how many hundreds of attempts to try and distract from that because he wanted to talk about the resolution, because he was saying, because what he wanted to demonstrate was the resolution of the fact you couldn't measure on, but that's irrelevant. The fact that that's what he was trying to demonstrate doesn't stop you from showing that the picture demonstrates something else, and he wouldn't let you. I mean, I don't know how you managed to contain yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. I got the right one now.
Think
no.
so.
Should we be looking
no,
live
this
chat?
is Shenandoah Valley. Is that the one?
Now,
okay.
if you recall, there was that picture that was taken through the auto level where the crosshair goes right over the top of Blackpool Tower.
This is not Blackpool.
I know.
Okay.
This
All
is
right.
This is in Hagerstown.
Okay.
Now, on the left, the instrument is 400 feet lower in elevation than the top of that tower, but I have to look down to it. If I level up the scope, I'm looking right across. I'm looking above it, just like in the Bev photo. But I measured the angle down, and it's a full arc minute. So I have to measure a negative vertical angle.
Bless you.
Thank you.
To get to that, and that tower is 400 feet higher in elevation.
Is this picture in live chat or is it Blue Ops? Did you say? We can't see the picture. I can't see the picture in Discord.
Well, really? I see it on YouTube.
Oh, well, where are you grabbing this from, Blue? Is it Blue Ops then?
No, it's in Shill Your stuff.
Oh, Shill Your stuff. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where it is.
So, much like when Bev was looking at Blackpool Tower with just an auto level going over the top, if I level up my gun, I'm looking over the top of a tower that's 400 feet higher, and it's 27 miles away. And I can measure the angle down and go through all the arithmetic, and I get the right elevation of the tower by measuring that rather slight angle, 1 arc minute below horizontal, to get to the top of this tower, which is 400 feet higher. So it's actually pretty easy to measure, but you got to have a proper instrument and a good location. I'm over the Shenandoah Valley, so here the line of sight is nowhere skimming any terrain. It's not 3 feet above water. You know, it's in the best possible, most predictable column.
Yeah, you're up in a good part of the atmosphere.
I'm a little bit confused by this diagram, Larry, because the elevation, if you measure the elevation is the distance from the mean sea level, the tower is lower than you. So this diagram doesn't
No.
really quite help.
Well, you've got to look at the numbers, and I drew in the sea level arc. So
Yeah, so I'm just saying that the picture's giving the wrong impression, because it does actually look closer. The top of the tower, which you've marked as 716 meters, is actually closer to mean sea level than the Cove Gap thing, where you say you've got an elevation of 596. So unfortunately, your diagram is not helping you here in terms of the scaling you've got. It's actually that your tower is actually lower as in terms of distance from the arc, the mean sea level arc, than the
That's
Cove
because I
Gap.
leveled it up. I drew it level from the point of the observer. So the numbers carry it.
Can you not see that the distance between the top of the tower and the arc you've called mean sea level is smaller for the tower than it is for the, well, okay, perhaps it looks to me small. Okay, perhaps. Oh, actually, oh god, yeah. Okay, I can't. Okay, perhaps you have drawn it. Okay, it to me visually, I can't see. Damn it. Okay, it could be.
No, it looks right, I think.
Okay, I can't be.
I haven't scaled it, but
Yeah, this is a sketch.
yeah. Well, that's the other thing those clowns want to do. They want to take a damn sketch and treat it like it's a 2-scale drawing, which it isn't.
Well, they'll also find any little thing that they can find.
Well, in any textbook, they always have these exaggerated scales, because if you draw at scale and you're only going 15, 20 miles, everything still looks like it's such a slight arc that you can't even draw it.
Right.
Yeah, you have to exaggerate it, don't you?
I take it back, Larry. I've just checked it, and indeed the tower you've got is actually further away from the arc called mean sea level. I don't know why. There's some sort of optical illusion. I was thinking it was, yeah. So in fact, you are correct.
That's kind of why it was drawn that way. That from the observer on the left, the horizontal line, and that higher tower is below my eye horizontal.
Yeah, I suppose one thing that may have certainly have helped me is if you're drawn in some arcs for the various levels, and so you could see that the tower was actually above on a level that was going above the observer. That's just an illustration, hint and tip, anyway. But yes, your diagram is actually to scale in terms of. So I was incorrect when I said it wasn't.
That's the second time you've been incorrect now, Robert.
Well, yeah, that's just true.
I forgot when that other
okay.
time was, 20 years ago or something. But
in his whole, I was about to say, in his whole life, Blue?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, this was. I'm prepared to say visually. It was a visual thing, so I didn't go and check it. I didn't assert it as absolutely true. It just appeared to me. I think I said so. I'm going to escape on that one.
No,
that's good that you're playing the devil's advocate. Yeah, like a flight simulator.
And in that diagram, I just show that I measured about 1 arc minute down to the tower. Now that's just measured. So that includes, refraction has not been addressed in that sketch, because actually refraction has elevated it so that minus 1 arc minute is really greater. It's like minus 2 arc minutes.
You think it would double it? I don't know if it would do that much. Maybe.
Are you saying that if you were not to if you were to include refraction, it would be about horizontal?
No, the other way it would push it down.
Oh, so I thought the diagram. Is the diagram supposed to include refraction or not?
I measured 1 arc minute. That's optical. If I were in a vacuum, it'd be 2 minutes and 48 seconds, over twice that 1 arc minute. So refraction reduced that. If a refraction were greater, it might even be, it could be, you could bring that to 0 with a very high refraction.
Yeah.
Refraction flattened the Earth.
Yeah.
Because with refraction, you get that 7/6R. That means you got a 4,700 mile radius, optical.
Yeah.
As opposed to the 3960. So yeah, it increases the radius, flattens that out. So there's 1 minute and 48 seconds of refraction and the 1 minute observed would be 2 minutes and 48 seconds. And over 27 miles, that's real money.
Yeah.
From Jesse, so 3 arc minutes of horizon, 3 arc minutes above eye level.
I say one of the things that makes it kind of difficult is you need a pretty good instrument, because whenever you're dealing with vertical angles at any significant distance, you're dealing with very small angles. You're always in the, a degree or half a degree or 2, even 2 degrees is steep.
Yeah. What instrument were you using for that? Were you using your preferred sort of ancient one, or were you using a modern thing?
Nope, one of the oldest ones I got. It's that
Oh,
big
I thought
ass
you might-
picture right above it.
Oh, right, that one. Yeah. Your whatever it is, 2 thing. That's right. It
That's a
says no total
T3.
station for me. Right.
That's a T3. That is
Right.
that was the geodetic tool of choice ever since World War II,
Yeah.
until electronics put that to bed about 1980.
Right.
Larry, what magnification you have on it?
That has 2 eyepieces, 24 and 40, 40x.
Wow. Wow. That's impressive. Yeah,
No,
George was
this
trying to get
this
hold of.
instrument here. This instrument
George-
here was kind
Go
of
ahead,
geared for dealing with 50, 80, and 100-mile observations. So one of the mantras of some of the idiots like Bev says, "Oh, theodolites and instruments are only good for 500 meters or 200 meters. They're not accurate at great distances." Well,
Absolutely. I sorry to interrupt you, Larry, but yeah, that's the one I absolutely hammer home. Immediately he makes that comment and says that auto levels are not designed to work for more than 100 meters. And I think Blue, made the same comment. Perhaps he didn't quite make the comment he interacted with. You can just say, look, they measured the height of Everest using a theodolite. So what over 80 miles or what it was away. That's our favourite chat, Larry. So yes, they can work perfectly, and there's no. And he talks about his Euclid with one of the the primary axioms is that you can extend a line longer. Once you've got a line, you can extend it. Well, that's the same with a horizontal. There's nothing stopping you extending the horizontal. This doesn't stop when it goes to 100 meters. It carries on. Just as you can, Euclid says you can extend a line, you can extend a plane as well into infinity. Oh.
Yeah, an auto level, yeah, but a theodolite is not an auto level.
I hope you're joking. Well, of course, he didn't know. He didn't know that an auto. He did. Sorry to interrupt you again. He didn't know that a theodolite could do an auto level. He didn't know that until his interaction with George. I could not believe that.
yeah, if I just 90 up that scope, then it's the same as a level.
Yeah.
As I dip down, as I crank the scope down, I can measure how far down in degrees.
Yeah, Bev
And
didn't
that
know
instrument,
this.
And that instrument measures down. It has a direct reading of about 0.2 arc seconds. Now, in vertical angles, you got a much higher noise due to the atmosphere. But yeah, it reads in fraction arc seconds.
I mean, just think of this guy who goes on about, or he's on an auto level, goes on about lecturing other people. He didn't know the theodolite. And George and I had to explain to him that even the modern ones, there's a compensator in modern theodites to tell you what the angle is. He just didn't know this. In fact, I don't think he even knows that. I mean, he goes on about horizontals. I don't think he really knows that an auto level works. There's a sort of pendular device in it. The compensator is just acting like a pendulum. So it's the vertical that's the primary way of finding out what is the basis of everything, the foundation of everything, and then the horizontals that it shows you are just simply 90 degrees to that. I don't think Bev actually understands that.
The only way to establish horizontal, the only way, is by the gravity vector. If you're using a carpenter's level, it's still the gravity vector.
Yep.
If you're using any instrument of any kind, it orients to the gravity vector. And horizontal, perpendicular to it. You don't get horizontal any other way.
Yeah, they don't know that. They really don't know that. They think vertical is derived from the horizontal, as far as I can see.
From
Just
horizon.
amazing.
From horizon.
Well, the horizon, yes, indeed. Yes.
Yeah, you never. Yeah, you never see a carpenter, leveling up a kitchen counter and having to open a window and find the horizon.
Not
And,
normally.
yeah, they get it backwards too. You don't say that horizon comes from horizontal. Since when does a suffix come before the root word?
Yeah, and etymology is never going to get you anywhere. There are all sorts of words that actually are contradicted by the etymology of them. So it's absolutely no point in quoting etymology in an argument about something. It won't get you anywhere.
And they don't know an adjective from a noun anymore.
Well, given that Bev keeps on saying have wrote instead of have written, he can't even get his auxiliary verbs and tenses correct. The guy is a moron of the first order.
Yeah, when a Brit can't speak English, you gotta laugh.
It is. Yeah. It really aggravates me. Really drives me nuts when he can't even get past tenses and put in the correct auxiliary verb and say
that's right. He should talk like what I does.
Yeah, like I do.
Yes,
I had to correct Sleeping Warrior. Sleeping Warrior said, when I say water is level, I'm using level as an adjective and a noun.
Oh Lord!
I was like, at the same time. All right.
Well, of course, he said, and another thing, he said that is not a verb. So when he says and there was a sentence like something is level, he says there's no verb in there. He doesn't understand what a verb is, and I mean, admittedly, that is when you use adjective. There is a certain verb form, a sentence form where you use a verb. Say something like when you say something is red, it's called an adjectival assignment or something where you use the verb to assign the adjective to something, because you normally put adjectives in front of things like the black horse or something. But you can say this object has this property where you use a verb to do it, and it's a special construction. But apparently he didn't understand that is a verb.
Yeah, it's called a linking verb. It's he seems, he looks good instead of he looks well.
You make a good point, though, Larry. Yeah, when you hear a Brit that doesn't speak English properly, you really start to wonder. I mean, I've been there. Hell, I've been there, and the cab drivers speak, perfect English. What the hell? What's wrong with this guy?
Yeah, he's a moron, isn't he? Absolute moron.
This is one of the stranger ones that's come up lately, though. Larry, you'll get a kick out of this. Mobius has been trying to nail me down on the idea that because verticals are not parallel, because our zeniths are not parallel, that will somehow or the other introduce an error in your measurements.
Of what?
Of when you try to read your rod 300 feet away, that 2 arc-second deviation between the zeniths is going to somehow or the other affect the reading that you're making on the rod. That's really hard to believe anybody could be that stupid.
However, in precise geodetic leveling, the rods have level vials on them.
Right.
And you better be Plumb, because those little things,
But it's worse though. It's worse, Larry.
Yeah, a handful of microns as a systematic error will eat you alive.
Yeah. But that's his contention. You've got the instrument is already plumb at its point, right? And the rod is plumb at its point, but there's a deviation between those plumbs. And he thinks somehow or the other that over a couple of 100 feet, 2 arc seconds would make a difference. You can calculate it, and the difference is in terms of nanometers.
But actually, if you're looking at the rod, even if it's angled, it would still be correct, though, because I mean, if you for instance, suppose you could see a rod that was 60 miles away, 60 nautical miles away, it would also be inclined at 1 degree. That means you would still get the right. If you were looking at it, you would still get the right value, even if the rod's inclined. In fact, it has to be inclined, but you would still get, even if the scale is slightly inclined, you would still get the right even if an inch or whatever it's looking at is compressed because it's tilted, you would still, if you look at the midpoint, for instance, you would still get the midpoint between two marks, surely.
And let's not talk about 60 miles away when reading a level rod. That's when it gets cloudy.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I mean, obviously, it's completely impractical. Yes, obviously, from a practical point of view, it's a silly argument. But I was just thinking in terms of geometrical argument.
The idea is that you're reading a measuring rod, and the idea that you can't get an accurate reading based on how it works. The problem is, like Blue is just saying, and it's even the worst part is it's the basic idea of it is what he's confused on. I tried to explain that just the fact that the measuring rod needs to be perpendicular plumb is just the fact that it's referencing the surface it's measuring on, and he doesn't get that's the purpose of it being plumb. He really thinks that the two have to be parallel to each other to work, otherwise it's off. That's his kind of like his argument is.
Well, that's the point I'm making. It doesn't have to be for you to get the right value, because if they are diverging, you will actually still get the right measurement.
I don't think you will.
Yeah, actually, no, I must think about that actually.
What does he think Plumb is for then? Why does he think you use a Plumb bob before you set up a theodolite anyway?
Well, that's the thing is once you start saying that, then he basically all he does is try to run you down on the whole setup idea of it. And even just setting it up, he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand that you would set up a tripod. Literally, this is what I explained, and he kept being confused about. I told him you set up the tripod. You would measure, the surface to the tripod, and he goes, "What about when you use an adapter?" I go, "Some machines you don't need an adapter, but the ones that you do, you would do the exact same thing and measure it, blah blah blah." And he goes, "Well, my auto level doesn't have one," and I'm like, just to the basic of how to set one up. And then he goes, "What if you bump it?" I'm like, "It doesn't matter. That has nothing to do with what you're trying to ask me." They literally just want to go around everything rather than just start to understand what's being talked about. I tried talking about this, and the first thing Bev said to me was, "Did you do a two-peg test?" I said, "Bev, I'm setting up an auto level. What do I need to do a two-peg test for if I'm just setting it up?"
Yeah.
What if I bump it? That's a good one.
Well, I got an idea. Don't do that.
do not let him near your tripod. Hey, what if I do this?
What if I smack him with a hammer? Yeah, you're probably going to screw something up.
Actually, my point is it has to be diverging. You would get an error if you tried to make them parallel, and there was an issue with this.
Well, that's why in precise leveling, you never go past 60 or 70 meters.
Right.
Because then those things, then the difference in rod reading from parallel to the plumb at instrument and perpendicular and vertical at 60 meters away, you're in the noise. That's not significant, but you have also balance sites where you're looking the same distance behind you, the same distance in front of you, and there's rules on how close your line of sight can even get to the ground. You can't read the rod less than a meter. Not legally, because of refraction, because when you get really close to the ground, it goes to shit.
But here's the point. There's a very slight divergence of the zeniths between 2 points that you can legitimately measure looking through a theodolite or an auto level at a rod is insignificant. It's just a handful of nanometers. It is orders and orders of magnitude less than what you can see to begin with. So who cares?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what.
Can't measure it. Yeah.
And I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. If you've ever tried to hold a rod, good luck if you think you're going to hold that thing closer than a quarter of a minute, maybe, Larry, at best.
Oh no, a couple of minutes. I mean, it's.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
A good rod's only 3 meters long.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're never going to be able to, the guy holding the rod's never going to be able to do any better than that. Yeah. Now, the surveyors I've worked with want you to rock the rod toward them and away from you, toward them and then toward you. so that they can have a look at it, do it slowly so they can see where the minimum number is.
That's because they don't have a rod level.
Right.
Yes. So I'm sitting. I was in the voice chat, and I was having a conversation with Mobius, and out of nowhere, Bev goes, "Do you know what shaking the rod means?" And I go, "Excuse me." He goes, "Shaking the rod," and I go, "Context, please." And he goes, "You must never have done surveying if you don't know what shake the rod means." And I'm going, I've never in my life had a reason to shake a measuring rod at any fucking point in my life. But now you actually make sense to what he was trying to get me on when
Yeah.
and the saying, yeah, it's still wrong in it.
That's what he was trying to tell you.
Oh,
He's just not
geez.
smart enough to tell it to you.
Well, that was the thing, because we were talking about measuring rods, and I'm thinking in my brain, man, first of all, measuring rods, it goes in any application of sighting it. You have grade checking to down to little just curb and gutter and shit for concrete. I don't ever remember shaking a rod.
Well, like Larry was saying, good rods have a little bubble level on the side of them. So, you know, you just do the best you can to put the bubble inside the circle.
And the leveling rods that I use also have two supports. So you get it leveled up, and it's sitting there stationary, and when you move the instrument ahead, it just rotates it in place. So whatever the orientation was at the beginning, when you advance, it's the same orientation.
That's cheap.
No,
I didn't get a tripod rod when I fucking did it. That's not fair.
A question to Larry.
I have a serious question for the professional surveyors out there. I've heard all my life that if you shake your rod more than 3 times, you're just playing.
No.
Is that true?
No.
No.
We're not going
It's
there.
not true? Okay,
We're
good.
not
Good to
going
know.
there. No, we're not going there. No more rod shaking.
Yeah, question to Larry. Do you do?
I don't think Bev knows what that is, actually. He keeps on referring to it in a strange way.
Well, you do that when you think your instrument is out of whack.
Yes, but I don't think he realizes. I don't think he realizes it's just a check on the validity of the instrument. He refers to it as a sort of procedure you use as part of the surveying process.
Yeah, he acts as if that is what that is a part of every setup pencil. That's how he puts it.
Yeah.
No, not setup. Every time you move the auto level, you do differential leveling. You move it several times, right?
Yeah, he would. I call them back checks. You may call them something else, but what the two peg test is, what being talked about, is different from moving and confirming than calibrating it, so to speak. You're not calibrating, checking the calibration of your machine. There's different. They're completely two different things.
That's right. One of the marvelous things about differential leveling is that it eliminates 3 kinds of errors. The first kind is collimation error. The second kind of error it eliminates is earth curvature. And the third kind of error it eliminates is refraction.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I only discovered this when Larry mentioned it about what I asked him. I couldn't understand what this backside and foresight lark was about, and then I asked Larry about it about a year and a half ago or something, and then he mentioned it. I think something that set me on. He didn't quite say that, but those 3 things are just incredible. This backside and foresight lark. The fact that you can eliminate those 3 errors is just incredibly fantastic. It's
Yeah,
it's just
the
brilliant.
thing about geodetic surveying at large is it's self-checking. You do everything by a procedure where really nothing can get past you.
Yeah, but but Joy, with geodetic, if you're doing something like measuring Mount Everest, surely you can't check it, can you? You only if you can do closed loops and things can you check the validity of what you're doing. But if you're doing something like measuring Mount Everest, you can't, can you?
No, like with a zenith angle, you're always rotating the instrument 180 degrees and doing it again. So if you read an angle and say 1 degree up, well, you rotate the gun 180 degrees and read it again. So you've taken that leveling vial, where you get it all nice and level, make your reading, you rotate it 180 degrees and do it again.
Right.
So If that leveling vial is whacked, it doesn't affect your measurement when you make both of them and do the averaging or the proper
Right.
arithmetic.
Right. Oh, nice.
That's why a theodolite doesn't carry a calibration sticker, because by its operation, you are essentially checking it with every measurement.
If you use the right procedure, right?
Oh, procedure is everything.
Well, yeah, you rotate it and flip it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, I was vaguely aware of that, but of course, not being a professional, I hadn't quite realised that. I was aware you could do that, but yes, I didn't realise that's what you did. Yes, that's brilliant.
Okay, I was using an auto level that was a high precision auto level, and as you pointed out, yes, there's an interior, there's a pendulum mechanism on to a prism, and so when you're reading it, as your best adjustment, you know you're looking slightly downhill or slightly uphill, just slightly. So on this instrument, you then rotated that compensator 180 degrees, and then you read everything again. And you could see if you get a split, well, A, the mean of that split is true. And also, if the mean of that split, or if that split changes, now you know you've got some irregularity.
Yeah.
So I could rotate it and typically get, I don't know, maybe a millimeter different. Well, that's okay. But if you get sometimes a millimeter, sometimes 2 millimeters, then you know the pendulum isn't hanging free.
Yeah. Or you've got some other problem, the bearings or something aren't working. It's all wobbly, or you're standing on something that's wobbly.
No, it's the whole thing is, again, it's all self-checking.
Yeah, the procedure takes all this into account. Assuming you can follow the damn procedure.
And presumably for something like the Mount Everest thing, presumably you could determine its height, do what you just said about rotating by 180 degrees, doing it once. And of course, then you can change your position, presumably to somewhere slightly different, then see if you get the same results. There's another check on whether or not you got a valid result.
In Mount Everest, they observed from, 90 miles away, but from like 5 different locations.
Right.
And measuring a vertical angle, it takes a long time just to measure that angle running through the procedures. And they did it from many locations.
Right.
You never make an observation one off. Even that doesn't mean anything.
Well, you got to make it from a lot of different positions. I mean, the thing you're trying to measure, you do not know the distance to it, and you don't know the height of it. So, yeah, you got to make a number of observations to get a correct elevation of that thing.
Yes, that's true. You can triangulate it or something, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you got to try to find out where all those lines cross.
Yeah. Yes, well, that.
But they were kind of sloppy. They only got it within what, a meter?
2 feet. Just incredible. Just incredible. Absolutely amazing.
Well, I just put up the map of Everest, so you can see. Yeah, they sprayed it with a bunch. And so, they're taking horizontal angles to it, triangulated its position, and the vertical angles from many observation points, which is another bitch they seem to have, is that if that array has a few meters of spread or whatever it is, and they average it out, they go, oh, you got nothing but averages, nothing but averages. That's not a measurement.
God, yeah. Oh,
that's 1860, and that's 1860. Okay, cut them some slack.
That's a great map. I didn't realise that. Yes, I suppose I should have researched it. But yes, that's a great map, isn't it, of the observation of Everest from different locations. That's brilliant.
Shout out to David Lee in the chat for $1.99 super chat. Thank you, sir.
That's a great map.
No
Larry.
message.
Brilliant map. Brilliant.
Yeah, they took a few measurements, didn't they?
They did take the odd one or two, didn't they? Nothing left to chance.
They spent 40 years doing that triangulation. I mean, it was something only the Brits could do. Everybody else would have given up.
Yes.
What about all?
Project.
What about all the small triangles they have there?
That's the precise triangulation that was running across India, and they observed the mountains that were in Nepal, and they weren't, they couldn't get permission to go into Nepal, so they did what they could, and they weren't out to discover the highest mountain. They ended up discovering the highest mountain as only because oh my God, that's the highest mountain. But they weren't looking for it. They were trying to just triangulate across India.
Hey, shout out to Stingray for £5. He says, worth less today than it was a week ago. Also, do you ever send out invites to Bev to come here live? No, I don't. I don't want Bev here.
Yeah, I mean, I refuse. I'm offering to talk to Mobius and SE Montreal and Askin, and I just do not want to invite Bev because I regard him as such an odious character and such a devious. I just don't want to inflict him on myself when I get around to the bloody debate thing. So yeah, I'm prepared to go on his channel to be. Well, actually, I'm not prepared to go on his channel because he doesn't allow me to draw diagrams. Though he did allow you to do your presentation on there, so I don't know what you obviously got some special permission there. But in general, I've got a principle of not going on there because he won't let me draw diagrams, and the idea of inviting him into one's personal space or semi-personal space is you just think, oh, it's just a horrible person. Why? At least I think someone like SE Montreal, you might think he's an idiot and God knows what, but at least he's not quite as odious and dishonest and devious as
No, that's debatable.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it is debatable. I'd agree it is debatable, but he's not. I don't think he's as bad as Bev, though. I mean, come on.
It's about the same level.
Well, just for instance, the other day when Chaiki went over to Bev's, I think yesterday, he turned Chaiki down or has Chaiki down permanently. And when he was asked whether or not Chaiki was low level, he'll say, well, everybody can hear him. He's fine. Just stop mumbling. And he always dodges the question. Bev does this all the time about everything he does. Just like when Farmer's Boy said when you ask him about the shape of the earth. So he never answers the question honestly. So instead of answering the question, have you got Chaiki at 100%, he'd just say, well, we can hear him. People on YouTube are saying they can hear him. And he dodged the question of whether or not he'd turned him down because he's just a dishonest git.
No, I know he don't have me on 100%. He said,
yeah, but he tried to pretend as though he had.
the levels. He said, I set the levels.
Yeah, and they when you asked them whether they said no, they didn't answer your question, which is are you turned down? They said, well, we can hear you, or the YouTube can hear you, and actually I could tell because when I went into the chat to hear you, you were loud and clear. Go into YouTube, and it was barely possible to hear you without struggling. He's just a devious, dishonest little git. Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, and shout out to Judy Bassett for a PayPal, and I don't know how much it is, but because I can't get into PayPal right now. But I thank you so much, Judy. I appreciate it. And I don't think you guys can see it in Discord, but I've got a larger version, a more blown up version of the Mount Everest thing. And you can see they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines they shot to it from all over the place.
Yeah, that's right. I think I counted 7 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was quite an adventure. And that was done when, Larry? Back in the 1860s or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, about 1860.
I mean, wow.
Yeah.
And it wasn't redone until the mid 50s. And they used a wild T2, and they got much closer. They got to about 30 miles. And they still came up with essentially the same elevation. I mean, what's a couple of meters when you're talking, 10,000 meters?
Yeah. It's well within tolerance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, then there's the question of, the snow cap or the bedrock.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it was redone in the late 90s. And it was redone, I think, most recently in 2016 or something. And they went full Monty. They had GPS and theodolites from China and Nepal simultaneous. And again, it's not changing in any gross amount. It's changing, a couple of meters, which would be the snow Or yeah, it could be just some answers are better than others.
Well, of course, I
could
think
be the
how much
ground.
is
The ground is moving up and down a little bit
exactly? I think Everest is going up, isn't it, by an inch a year or something ridiculous, or something? I mean, for instance,
the tectonic plates are
the
still,
Atlantic is changing size by an inch a year. So, and I think,
all the tectonic plates are still moving, aren't they?
yeah, quite.
And so when you
They never stop moving.
So when you're taking terrestrial measurements from the mountain range, only 30 miles away, it's all going up at different rates. So when you're using GPS, now you've left the influence of where your instrument is. If your instrument's 50 miles away and it's also increasing in elevation, you can't hardly keep up with it.
Yes,
so with GPS, you're very independent of that, and GPS that gives you a very, very good ellipsoidal height, and then you have to use your gravity modeling to refine that into geopotential or orthometric height. So now you're getting into the definitions, which have subtle effects, but in geodesy, that's everything.
Yeah, because presumably the height given for Mount Everest. Yes, well, of course, we know that if you just take a GPS at your elevation, it can be quite different to the elevation given relative to mean sea level. So presumably the heights on maps, of course, are not using the ellipsoid model, are they? They're using the geoid or against mean sea level, which is effectively the geoid.
Right. The geoid heights relative to the ellipsoid have been well surveyed, but in those areas, yeah, it may not be as dense. They've got airborne, gravity surveys. They've got satellite gravity surveys. There's a lot of things that go into it, but again, we're talking geopotential or orthometric height above sea level. And since the ocean is thousands of miles away,
yeah,
and you've got multiple influences. One is the height of the geoid from the ellipsoid, but also the effect of gravity when you're at the higher elevation. So that's why you got to deal with geopotential, not just the physical dimension, but the acceleration of gravity at that location, being that it's 30,000 feet above sea level.
Yeah. Back in the day, they were doing that with pendulums.
And they knew about that in 1760.
Yeah, they did. They would figure out how much a pendulum lost or gained over a period of a day, and sometimes it would be a number like 2 seconds.
Yes, like in the meridian surveys in Ecuador in the 1760s, they were noticing that the period of their seconds pendulum varied from mountaintop to valley. Now that's pretty fucking sensitive.
Wow. I'm trying to do this document, this sort of introduction to the globe, which I'm hoping you'll look at, Larry, at some time, New Blue as well, and farmers as well, and sort of give me an because I'd like to get some endorsements from people. Say, look, because Bev says, for instance, that we don't have a unified opinion. I was going to try and do this sort of introduction to the globe and get you guys to sort of say whether you'd endorse it or not. And one of the things I was looking at was the and I was trying to write down whether you could work it out with just the measurement of g, or the acceleration due to gravity, whether that is the same. I did this several weeks ago now, and I've forgotten what I concluded. But Larry, is the can you work out your elevation just by knowing the acceleration due to gravity at that point? Does that give you the gravitational potential by knowing what the acceleration? I think I decided you didn't know it from that. Just remind me what the situation is.
You can maybe something rough, but there's so much other geology in the neighborhood which could affect that.
Right, but that affects your. I mean, for instance, let's suppose you had a dirty, great big lump of lead at the surface. That would change your orthometric height, wouldn't it?
Well, more like
because you've changed the potential. Because in other words, water would sort of form around it, so that becomes your geoid, and so that would change your the height that you would have there, because you've got a great lump of density thing. It would mean that water would collect around it, and so then would go higher, or would it?
Well,
yes, or lower.
Yeah, there's geology matters, and when you look at the data sheets for benchmarks and triangulation marks by the National Geodetic Survey, they have like 5 or 6 different elements: geopotential, buoyed height, orthometric height, ellipsoid height, all kinds of aspects of where that location, the accelerations of gravity, your deflections of prime vertical. I mean, there's a lot to it.
Yes.
Some of which is so subtle that if you're only dealing with a few hundred square miles, it doesn't mean a lot. But when you're dealing with the high science of plate tectonics, it means everything.
Yeah. So, do you accept my point that if I were to shove I don't know, 100 square miles of lead and shove that on the surface of the Earth, that would affect the effectively the height, the orthometric height, because you'll change the shape of the geoid, in effect, because you'll change the equipotential surface, and you would effectively, if I was to take out a bit of the Earth and replace it with a lump of lead near the surface, that would effectively effectively decrease or increase the height of what's there.
It would decrease. If you, you would increase acceleration of gravity if instead of, the typical Earth, which is like 6 times the density of water, if you bring it up with lead to something the size of Lake Mead, it could be measured, but you're not going to get that much lead or mercury in Lake Mead to replace Lake Mead.
Yeah, I'm just trying to demonstrate a point of how the density of the Earth affects what is perceived as being the orthometric height. It would change.
In gravity maps, that show the isobars or the I think it's called isobars of the contours of acceleration of gravity. It's kind of dynamic. I mean, the little changes here and there, between earthquakes and tectonic plate shift, lava flows, aqueducts being drained. Yeah, these things, are a little bit dynamic.
Yeah, very dynamic. In fact, when they surveyed the Bolivian salt flats with satellites over 10 years ago, they discovered that even though there's no deviation, in elevation for a huge swath, many kilometers, that the geopotential is it's different at different places. There's pockets where there's more, and so what they're saying that these are underground masses that change.
Right. I mean that's what water will follow the equipotential surface. So if you do increase the the density of something, you've effectively changed the height of that thing.
Well, we've been finding oil that way for a long time.
Right. That's what old PhD Tony does, is it?
Oh, gravity surveys and oil exploration are hand in hand, without a doubt, because you end up with this large pocket of low density oil. Yeah, you can see that in gravities. Your salt domes, same thing. You can find subsurface geologic structures by looking at the contours of gravity acceleration.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, so for instance, something lying around Mount Everest, because there's a great lump of rock there above the Earth, water will then have a higher level around the base of Mount Everest than it would do if Mount Everest wasn't there. So that means you effectively changed the shape of the geoid just simply because you've got a dirty, great big mountain present. So
yeah, even back in like 1810 or something in Ireland, I think it was Dixon and Mescaline they did a survey around a mountain where they surveyed from the south side of the mountain around to the north side of the mountain, and then they measured so they had a true distance between those 2 points, and then they did astronomical observations to determine the change in latitude, and they were noticing, yes, the plumb bobs hang and they're pulled toward the mountain. Since they were starting on the south side of the mountain and then on the north side of the mountain, they were able to measure the fact that the plumb bobs were pulled to the mountain.
Yeah, I mean, this is that famous mountain in Scotland where they were trying to do that as a Cavendish type experiment. Was it
Schehallien?
Schehallien, thank you, Alan. That's that. I can never remember that name. And it was a symmetrical mountain. That was what's special about it. It was a symmetrical shape, so therefore they thought the gravitational.
Nice, yeah, it was a nice mountain. It was a nice mountain.
It was a nice
and
mountain. Yes.
They poured their heart and soul into it, and then they had to survey the mountain to get its volume.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Well, of course they would.
Shake your rod at Schehallien.
Yeah. Yes, of course they have. Yes, that's right. They need a nice shape mountain to work out its volume and therefore its mass and therefore how much it's affecting. Yes, quite. Yeah.
That's the mnemonic device for you, Rumpus, so you can remember it next time.
Second, what was that?
Shake your rod at Schehallien.
Oh right, okay, thanks.
Now you'll remember.
It's a Schehallien. Yes, I can never remember that stupid eclipse as well. The one that where you can see the sun and the moon at the same time. Have a lunar eclipse. What's the name of that one where you can see a lunar eclipse? And say again.
Schehallien.
Schehallien. That's right.
No H.
Right. Yes, I get that mixed up with the mountain. Yes.
Yeah, they're close.
Yes.
And out in the YouTube chat, Stephen Mudd said oil is mainly found by seismic data, which I believe is true.
Right.
But not totally by that. They use gravimetric measurements too.
Right.
Oil is nowhere near as dense as rock is.
But when they surveyed around the mountain and realized that vertical is tilted away from the mountain, that was a Cavendish.
Yeah, that's what they were doing.
Yeah, exactly.
The plumb bob was pulled to the mountain.
Yeah, that's exactly. It was a substitute Cavendish experiment. Yes, at the same time they were trying to work out which was best.
Unfortunately, it was way far off compared to Cavendish, but
yeah.
Well, it was all that. Got to find out what the mass of the Earth is, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, that was the idea. I still haven't gone through fully your decoding of that Cavendish way, the effectively way he included that G and didn't get what the mass of the Earth and somehow got straight to the density. All those incredible ratios that you went through. Jesus Christ, I never got through to checking your stuff on that.
Yeah, do not whatever you do try to apply any units to it.
Right.
Do not give any of that crap any dimensions. You will come up with crazy stuff.
To be clear, he was looking for the density of the Earth, not the mass, right?
Exactly, but he doesn't. I don't think he shows the mass. Which you see, if you did it normally the way we tend to think in modern days, you think, well, get the mass, then you know its volume, and then you get the density. But I don't think he did that, did he, Blue? He didn't. He somehow managed to dodge the mass part and got straight to the density by all these strange ratios that he used.
What he didn't do was write it down. He had the diameter of the Earth, which he states. And he determined the density of the Earth, which he states. So it's it's trivial then to
right. But did he right? You can obviously calculate. But did he? But you would have thought you'd say this is what the mass of the Earth is. You know its volume, and then you work out the density. But he somehow got the density first, didn't he? From which you would then get the mass. Is that not right? Or
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Right.
And the thing that throws a monkey wrench in that is that the density of the Earth is, got that big iron core. So if you're measuring the density of stuff, materials on the surface, well, it's on the surface because it's floating.
Yeah.
The crust is floating on the mantle.
Yep. It varies. Yeah. Then obviously, I think I can't remember what the ratio is. The core is It's something like it's at least twice as dense, I think, as the stuff above the core, whatever it's
Oh,
called. Is it mantle? What's that area?
more than that, I think.
Yeah, it could easily be. I can't remember the. Yeah. So you need to. So you can only work with the average density. Yes, you need to do. And it's just so fortunate that the mass of the Earth as a spherical object acts like a point at the center. It saves. If you didn't have that, you'd be in right trouble.
Well, it's iron. How much is iron? 7
It's
point
o-
something?
and it's only a point source when you're far away from it. When you get down onto its surface, the mountains are affecting you. You got all kinds of things. So it's not really point source when you're down in it. I mean, right on the surface, you got a lot of different influences. If it was a point source, then gravity would be uniform.
Yeah, but that's a rate. Yeah, but that ratio is quite small. I mean, the topography does affect, but but in terms of the big calculations, I mean, you're obviously dealing here with parts per whatever it is, parts per billion or something, parts per million or something. But I was thinking of the general scheme of things. But yes, obviously, when you're working at the details, you're talking about where these seismic, these gravimetric things. That's the whole point. As you're saying, you can pick up oil fields and things by density and variation. That's what PhD Tony does, and you working with these incredibly tiny things. But yes, you can do it, but they're fundamentally.
Yeah, I think the person was right though who said that his bread and butter, so to speak, is seismic data that he uses to find oil.
Right.
Yet
Is
the
that
majority, in
seismic data?
fact, I think that's the title of his degree has seismic in it. If I'm not mistaken.
Is that waiting for natural seismic events, or is it setting off these explosive charges and then seeing what the signal you get back from them? I can't remember.
I think it's a little of both.
Right. Yeah, it's just amazing what you can find out from making little explosions and things and measuring the results.
Oh yeah.
I remember back in about 1980, I was in South Carolina, and I saw this odd team. There were several teams of mostly college kids, and they were laying cables. They were like mile-long cables, bunches of them. And about every 100 feet, there was a seismometer, and they would lay out all these cables in some sort of frenzy. They could all get in place at once, and then at some central location, they drilled down about 100 feet and set off a dynamite charge. And then that's how they were doing the contours densities.
Right. Stefan Mudd just mentioned that they use high pressure air guns at sea. But I also know I knew someone who was doing something like this, and they were chucking over bits of dynamite or some sort of explosives over in a boat. So they do use explosions at sea as well. And I think actually there's always someone killing themselves by not releasing the thing or something when they chuck it over. They goes off in their hand or whatever, and there's always someone who gets killed or maimed as part of this process, and they quite dangerous actually if you're setting off bits of dynamite, I suppose. Two Left Thumb said, "Surely the centre of mass is regardless of shape. I doubt the spheres are the only." Yeah, the sphere doesn't act as a point at the centre. If you have something like because the force of gravity is proportional to the square. If you had, for instance, a plane, the force of gravity doesn't necessarily act at the centre of a thick plane. If you're on one edge of it, you can't use simple calculations as to where. And in fact, I think actually, Blue, didn't you do this? Didn't you working out the effect of the center of the gravitational effect of your rod? Didn't you have to do a sort of numerical breaking up because you can't use symmetry?
That's right.
Because it's a squared function. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And yeah, I thought that was quite. Yes, I must that bit of your paper. I thought that was quite good. That's exactly. I think you broke it up into 1 centimeter lumps, didn't you, to try and do a little calculation on it, which is exactly how I would have done it.
Yeah, that was the most expedient thing to do.
Yeah, that's very sensible. Exactly what I've done.
Yeah, just chop the thing up into small pieces and find the center of each one of those pieces and the mass of it, and then.
Blue, I think you ought to tell people in the chat exactly. Perhaps they might not be familiar with what you did there because it's quite good.
Well, you've got a number of corrections that if you're really trying to get accurate with Cavendish, there are a number of things that you've got to consider. And one of the things is, for the most part, you just consider those small masses as free masses out there in space with nothing around them. And we're looking at the force of attraction between those masses and the large masses. Problem is, you've got a bar, a wooden bar that those things are suspended from. And it doesn't weigh very much, but it does have an effect, because not only is gravity attracting the gravity of the big ball attracting the little one, it's also attracting that damn beam. So you need to account for that. And I scratched my head for a while and thought about how to do that. And it was not a regular shape. If it was just a cylinder or a rod or something, it would have been very easy. But it isn't. It's a compound shape. So I decided what I could do is just break it up into small sections, centimeter long sections. Find the center and find the mass of each section and in the center of it, and then numerically add up all of those effects back to the point where it's not really changing anything anymore. So that's a bad explanation, but that's sort of what happened.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, the fact you have to go, and I think Cavendish did the same correction, didn't he, or something similar?
Actually, that's one he didn't do.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure about that, but
he didn't account for that.
Right.
I decided that I needed to.
Right.
I don't know.
Blue.
Yeah. I corrected for everything I could think of. It was having an influence on it.
Yeah, that's brilliant stuff. Exactly what I'd have done. And I thought, when you said that, I thought you did exactly the way I thought. So yeah, 10 out of 10 that one. And Brian is still going around saying that we shouldn't be saying Cavendish is measuring mass attracts mass, but lead attracts lead. Oh God, he still doesn't know where he still thinks
that's not true. Blue also showed that Coca-Cola attracts lead.
That is true.
That's right, because he keeps on saying when you didn't use lead, you got some sort of dodgy result or something. It misbehaved.
That was when I was still playing around with the electrostatic part of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, what I was doing is showing you what happens if you don't take that into account.
Right. Right.
When the thing started exhibiting issues with clearly what had to be electrostatics, I thought, okay, well, I can show that. What would be a good thing? I know, a bucket full of sand. That'll do it. That's glass. You can get a fair amount of electrostatic charge on that.
Right. Yeah, it's just the levels you have to go to when you're doing proper science. Oh my goodness.
But of course, Leakey and others have tried to make a big deal out of that.
Yeah, I mean, he's completely misrepresenting it. Yeah.
There's proper science, and then there's trying to fill the flat earthers. Hey, what about ism?
Yeah, true.
The latest one was, but everything is diamagnetic, and you're going like, yeah, so.
Well,
I mean, we're not going to impose any big, strong electric fields on this, so we don't really need to worry about diamagnetism. So.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
But atoms are magnetic.
What that would do is make things go the wrong direction.
Well, that's correct too, but that's another issue. You know, they go, wait a minute, the whole atom everything is held together by electricity. Like, okay, but so?
Yeah. That's a Whitsitt lark. Yes, his line is that because atoms have got positive and negative. Well, actually, he denies the positive and negative side. Actually, he doesn't believe in positive and negative charges, but he says that because atoms are in his some scheme of his that doesn't involve opposite charges are electrically held together. Therefore, the whole thing is going to be causing the whole universe is running off electrostatic effects, not realizing, of course, that the human body is neutrally charged, and everything we deal with is generally neutral. Obviously, it changed a little bit.
I've asked him if gravity is caused by this charge thing. Why don't then positively charged items or negatively charged items, whichever one the Earth is, they can't decide. But one of them should fall faster than once we show you have positive, negative, and neutral. There should be like whichever one the Earth is opposite it should be faster, and the other one should be slower than the neutral item. But that doesn't
Well, he
happen.
denies that there's a positive and negative charge. He talks about dispersing it.
Right.
He thinks there's only one sort of charge.
Yeah.
And also, when you ask him, say, "Well, hold on, if I put you in a Faraday cage, then there'll be an effect." And then he say, "Well," so I initially mentioned the Faraday cage, and I say, "Well, okay, does that eliminate all of the electric charge?" And if you say, "Well, it only eliminates 99.9% or something of it," and I think actually, I'm not sure, but I think a Faraday cage can actually eliminate everything, but I'm not completely sure about that. But certainly very close to everything, if not everything. And magnetic fields are the problem. Low frequency magnetic fields, I think, are the things it has slight difficulty with. But even then, you'd expect to see an effect, reducing it. And then, of course, he runs away at that point. Just because he tries to get you on the fact whether or not it removes every single whatever flipping electrostatic field chart.
Well, yeah, this is the same argument they make with vacuums. Well, there's no such thing as a perfect vacuum. So.
Oh God, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
I won't argue with that. There is no such thing as a perfect vacuum.
Right, but that means that you can't see any effect at all in a vacuum because it's not perfect.
This gets on to that video you did, Blue, about QE not and thinking that 10 to the minus 17 torr or whatever it is was a hugely different number from 0.
Yeah,
oh,
it is.
You could not make this up.
Yeah.
You cannot make this stuff up.
Well,
they find ways of being incompetent and stupid. You just cannot imagine someone doing. It's just it's extraordinary.
I found a new word today, meganumerophobia, which is the fear of large numbers.
Or what about small numbers? That's the problem that QE has.
I suppose that would be micro pneumophobia.
Yeah, micro pneumophobia.
You want an absolute term? I mean that 10 to the minus 17 thing was just beyond belief.
Fight the Flat Earth and who's the other guy that we used to be with? They used to give people a litmus test, and one of them is 10 to the 1 times 10 to the minus 17. Is that a big number or is that a positive number or a negative number?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. I wonder if QE would get that right.
They cannot grasp the idea that the difference from 1 torr to absolute 0 is exactly the same as the difference from 760 torr to 759 torr.
Right.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
In my opinion, 10 to the minus 17 is a negative number because when QE subtracted it from another number, the result was greater.
Got bigger,
yes.
Yeah.
I saw that
Forgot
too.
about that. Oh my goodness, yes.
That's quantum subtraction.
Pocket
2 left
calculators
thumbs.
have ruined the
I
planet.
didn't go when I said a plane. I said a thick plane. I did not go to dropping a dimension. So don't claim I did. Honestly. Sorry, I'm just having to deal with 2 left thumbs giving me some abuse in the chat for some reason.
What's Lefty doing? Let's see. Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got to. I can't. It really annoys me that QE's getting away with this stupidity, and there are all these people just following him. This is a guy also who doesn't understand that when something's going up, that it can be accelerating down. So when you throw something up, it's accelerating downwards. He doesn't understand that. He thinks the atoms and the gas.
Absolutely no clue when it comes to that.
Yeah.
You can tell it to them, and their eyes glass over.
Well, I've asked them point blank back when they were going on the relative density bullshit. Ask them about the vomit comment and what changes when they start. What changes in the relative density when they start going over the parabola. And they start saying, well, they're going down. And they go, well, then there's something else. And then I threw at them, by the way, for the first half of going over the parabola, they're still going up.
That's right.
They're
accelerating downward, but they're still going up.
Yeah, still going up. They're just...
So
Two left
you know,
thumbs. I said a thick plane, not an infinitely thin one. Oh God. Sorry, I'm having to.
so anytime if you throw a ball up in the air, the instant that thing leaves your hand, it is from that point on accelerating downward.
Right.
Doesn't matter
Yes.
if it's traveling upward.
Yes.
A negative.
What's going on?
Hey, Brian Leakey.
Oh man, be quiet.
I wanted to think about something, man. If you don't mind, I was enjoying listening to y'all talking and shit till Rumpus started talking about me. But I'm just fucking, I'm messing with Rumpus. But no, I was thinking, like if we explain this to, if something's fallen, okay, let's say we have a sealed box and it's fallen,
Yeah.
and there's a helium balloon in it. Now let's take a sealed box on the ground and let's accelerate it forward. Okay. So if we accelerate it forward, as long as we're accelerating, the helium balloon is going to go toward the front of the box and the regular balloon is going to go to the back. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
So now the box.
Yeah, if you accelerate, so if you accelerate the box with just like you're talking about that demo that guy did, whatever it was, in a car where he had a balloon on a string, helium balloon, and he accelerated forwards, and the balloon went forwards as well. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking, because I was trying to work this out in my head as far as acceleration and all that, and I got to thinking, if you drop, let's say a sealed box with a helium balloon in it, it's not gonna, and accelerate it down, it's not gonna go to the bottom, and the regular balloon go to the top. They're both gonna go to the top. So I was trying to wonder it just seems like a different kind of acceleration. Why would they behave differently?
So just remind me again what you're describing. So if we have a box and we've got a helium balloon in it, a sealed box, and we've got a helium balloon in it and a normal balloon.
Yeah, let's say we start at 2 miles in the air on a platform.
Right.
We accelerate one of them sideways, and we accelerate
Oh,
the
we've
other
got two
one
boxes.
down.
Sorry, we've got two boxes now, have we?
Yeah, 2 boxes
Oh, right, right, 2 boxes.
on top of a 2 mile platform. So we accelerate one of them sideways, and then we let one drop and accelerate down. I'm wondering if there's an explanation on why they behave differently. Why does the one going sideways? I mean, I know the explanation for it, but
right. Well, let's deal with that going sideways one first. So if it's just like the thing within the car or in a box, doesn't really make any difference, and you accelerate the box horizontally, then that you will cause that the only way that the air inside it is going to be accelerated is if it's pushed. So all the air that was there at the front of the box is going to be go to the back of the box. It's going to be compressed. In other words, you're going to get a density gradient. At the back of the box, you're going to have more dense air because that's where the pushing is occurring, and the air, it's all being pushed to the back, and then when it sort of gets a bit dense, it's going to push forward. So you're going to get a density gradient from the front, which will be less dense, to the back, which will be more dense. That means helium or a balloon that you've got that was stable, suddenly it's going to have a greater density towards the back of the box than the front of the box, and therefore it will go forward. So that counts in the horizontal case.
So in retrospect, the air is not traveling with the box; it's actually dragged by the box.
Yes, that's the key thing.
The box traps the air; otherwise, it wouldn't have traveled with the box.
The side of the box, but the bottom, the rear part of the box is doing the pushing. So it's not gravity. That's why gravity is so different. The rear of the box is pushing all the air molecules along, and therefore that means you're going to accumulate a gradient. Whereas with gravity, all the molecules are being accelerated downwards at the same rate.
Yeah,
so that's why that's why this is very different, horizontally and vertically.
So the gravity doesn't do nothing to help the air travel with the box. It's just the fact that it's enclosed and it just catches it, basically, right?
I didn't understand that point, I'm afraid. So
let's now deal with it. I was just kind of repeating and rewording it, but to me,
okay. Let's now deal with it. Let's now deal with the situation where the box is falling. So gravity accelerates. So you've got some setup in the box.
I got a regular balloon and a helium balloon.
Okay, in one box.
Yeah, a big box.
Okay, so we got one big box with a helium balloon in it and an air balloon, and so the air balloon is just neutral density, and then you just let it drop. But all of the so the helium balloon is already at the top of the box, and the air-filled balloon, the normal one, is just, well, actually be slightly lower, won't it? Because it'll be on the ground because the weight of the balloon is dragging so it'll be on the bottom of the box, an air-filled balloon,
Right.
and the helium balloon will be at the top of the box. And when you
Right.
drop it, or gravity is acting on all those molecules in exactly the same way. It's accelerating them down equally for everything. It's not like the top of the box is pushing on the air and accelerating the air caused by the pushing, which is what's happening horizontally. The gravity affects all of the molecules down to the quark level, pulling all of them uniformly down at the same acceleration. So there will be no change when a box is falling as to what it was doing when it was just sitting there.
Wait a minute.
Whereas the box that's being moved horizontally is the air is having to be pushed by one side of the box to be accelerated, and that will cause an increase in density at that point.
So you think both of the balloons will stay where they're at, basically?
Correct.
You don't think the balloon without helium in it will go to the top?
No, you've got air in there, haven't you? So you've got an air-filled box. Perhaps we didn't detail that. So you've got an air-filled box, I'm presuming, with an air-filled balloon that's sitting on the bottom, and then you've got a helium balloon that's floating at the top. That's the starting situation, and it's just standing there. Then we drop it. It will make no difference. Hold on. I might have to. Hold on. I'm going to take this all back. Sorry, I haven't allowed for something here.
Yeah, I was waiting on that.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. I'm going to have to withdraw that actually. Suddenly, yes, because it's being uniformly accelerated, there will be the helium balloon will then. Yes. Sorry. Yes. You. The unit. Yes. There will be no. The helium balloon could easily end up at the bottom if it was jiggling around. Yes. Sorry about that. Yes. When you're in free fall. There is no because you've got the effect going horizontally because you've got an acceleration. But if you have a constant acceleration of everything, then there are no density effects because everything's falling uniformly. So yes, it would stay where it was basically. So I was actually sort of correct. There would be no change. It would just stay where it was because that's where there's no
thought experiment, eh?
Yeah. So, but in free fall, but in other words, if you held the helium balloon at the bottom, let's suppose you attached the helium balloon to the bottom of the box, then you dropped it, and then you undid the attachment, it would stay at the bottom.
Okay. So
because everything's accelerated in the same way.
I'm under the impression that it doesn't do that.
You're removing the density gradient inside the box, are you not?
Yes. Yes. So there'll be and everything will then just form uniformly. So it'll, in other words, whatever state you start off with, and you drop the box, it will stay. There'll be no reason for it to change, whatever it is. And you. And
so the air in the box is going down. It's accelerating down, right?
Everything is.
Shouldn't the helium balloon go against the acceleration like it
no,
does?
It'll be accelerated down at the same rate, and so that's why I said I was actually correct when I said nothing would change if you had it because it would start off being at the top and everything would just stay as it was. But if you, as I say, if you then attach the helium balloon to the bottom of the box, and obviously it's then trying to go up if you're just holding it stationary. Once you released it, you could then undo that attachment, and it would just stay there. So I was actually correct when I said nothing would change. Initially, but it would. But you do not have any buoyancy. You do not have any buoyancy effects in free fall.
Yeah, people have done that where they've dropped a bottle where they had the gas bubbles coming up in it, and the gas bubbles are rising. When you drop it, the bubbles stop rising, right?
Sorry. If I drop the balloon next to the box, the balloon's going to go up, and the box is going to go down. So if I open one side of the box,
you're now holding a balloon alongside the box, and it's dropping with the.
Yeah, if I have them next to each other, the balloon's going to go.
Then you've got air resistance. It's not going to stay with the box. You've got air resistance.
Right. That wasn't my point. I was just it was a preface. So if I open one one side of the box and I have like a 5-sided box, then what would happen, Rumpus?
I haven't understood your new scenario.
Well, the
If
box
I
is
draw a
falling through. Hold on, the box is falling through the air, right? And it's
Right.
getting air. It's getting air resistant. Okay. So.
Oh, that's a good point. Actually, that is a good point. Yes, you're right. You're right. Sorry. Yeah, you're actually right. Yes, because the air resistance is not in free fall. So yes, it would be sub there. Yes. Okay. So in which case, then yes, you're right. If you considered air resistance and it wasn't in free, and if it wasn't, it's not. It is in free fall, but it's got air resistance. Then it's not going down all uniformly. There is going to then there is going to be still an acceleration field inside, in which case the helium balloon would then rise to the top if it started off at the bottom.
So the air is not accelerating down. The atmosphere is not accelerating down, right?
Just atmosphere in general. Yes, it is. All the atmosphere is accelerating downwards. But the point is
so if I drop the box.
But hold on, let me just clarify that though. Remember, the molecules in the atmosphere are moving around at about 400 meters per second. The oxygen, I think, is or 600 meters per second. I can't remember that. 400 meters per second. Now, so that velocity means that that's much greater than the acceleration that's going on. So, and even if molecules are effectively falling down, if you just managed to take one out, if there was done, it wasn't colliding with anything, and it had an oxygen molecule just sitting there 2 miles up, it would then fall down. Although, of course. Let's imagine it didn't have any velocity. In other words, it had no temperature. Normally, obviously, things do have temperature, and they always have a random direction. So, quite likely that if you did pick on an oxygen molecule, it could easily have a 400 meters per second velocity upwards. I mean, this is where Oakley gets confused with his steam thing. So when you could easily, if you were to pick on an oxygen molecule, you'd have to pick on one that was not going up or down, and that's unlikely to be doing one of the two. But if you could pick one that did not have any velocity, it would then fall, and then it would hit the ground and then bounce up again. And obviously, it would pick up the temperature of the ground also that it collided with. So you've got to watch out for these scenarios. Always, you've got to consider that the molecules you're looking at are moving around at 400 meters per second, and
Can you try
also in all different directions.
Quick, bro, if you don't mind.
Good. Sorry.
You can make your answers a little quicker, bro. I mean.
Yeah, but it's a very complicated. Yeah, it's a very complicated thing. This idea that people do not consider that the air molecules. People because you've asked that question. Does it fall down?
Are you going to repeat it?
Okay, I am going to repeat it. Yes, because people like you say, is the air molecule going to fall down? And if it's going up at 400 meters per second, then it doesn't go down. And so people like Oakley as a gotcha question, saying, does the molecule then fall down if you have it in a box? And no, if it's going upwards at 400 meters per second, it's going to take a long time to fall down. And I think you were trying a gotcha question there, so I wasn't having it. I mean, this is the classic thing that Oakley will say, is the gas falling down? So when I then, in gravity, so when I have something coming out of a kettle, why doesn't the gas coming out of the kettle fall down and go onto the ground? And of course, it's because it's got these 400 meters per second. You're not dealing with things that do not have zero velocity. These things are going up. And so you've got to always consider that in the answer. And people like Oakley and QE try this trick every time. About trying to get you to ask you why it isn't falling to the ground, and that's because there are lots of initial velocities going upwards. I think that's where Brian was going with that. So beware, people, when people ask you why the gas doesn't go down. It is accelerating downwards, but it could be going upwards. And of course, people like you, we do not understand that things can be accelerated downwards while going upwards.
Wouldn't that just be describing the rate at which it rises?
Well, no, that's dependent on the velocity. I mean, the molecules are moving around in all directions, up and down, left and right, whatever. They could be going down at 400 meters per second or going up. So the acceleration due to gravity will just come off that. So for instance, if you take some steam that's coming out of a kettle, you could easily have an oxygen molecule that's going up at 400 meters per second, and it's going to take a long time. Imagine if it wasn't going to hit anything. 400 meters per second, if you have acceleration of 9 meters per second downwards, it's going to take an awfully long time before it turns round and then heads back to the ground. But people like Oakley will say, well, hold on, you say that atoms fall to the ground. Well, they're accelerated to the ground, but if they got a huge velocity upwards to begin with, then they're not going to go towards the ground initially. It's going to take them, they could easily have to go up, several miles before the acceleration due to gravity then turned them round and then made them go back down again. It's a classic Oakley QE gotcha trick question.
The same idea as if you throw a baseball up.
Yeah, I mean, you can think of it as baseball. Yes, I mean, you can think of the water molecules in there as a baseball, little baseballs, and they could be shooting up at 400 meters per second. So that's going to take a long time before it drops. So when Oakley says, "Well, hold on, you said that gravity is accelerating everything to the ground when it's coming out of the kettle. Why isn't it going downwards?" And of course, there's a buoyancy effect as well, the confusey issue, because steam is obviously less dense than the air around it. But that's another issue. But they're going to say, "Well, why doesn't it fall to the ground if you claim that gravity causes things to fall?" And it's because, of course, temperature means that these things have got a very high velocity and they could be pointing upwards. And that, unfortunately, needs explained to people like Brian to make the point. But obviously, he didn't like. Yeah, you got to explain. Yeah, so,
He'll be back. He said in the
right.
in
It's
the
just
YouTube chat.
It is complicated. So people who just take that thing will say, "Well, why doesn't the gas fall to the ground then if it's all being affected by gravity?" And so you've got to explain at length the difference between velocity and acceleration fundamentally, and people like QE don't understand that.
Well, these questions are interesting, and they're fun to think about, but I'm not sure what good they do.
Well, I'm breathing comfortably, so I think gas does fall to the ground.
Say again, Chaiki?
I'm breathing. There's enough gas here. It's evident that it falls down. Otherwise, it wouldn't be here.
Yes, I mean, second law. Yes, I mean, you could argue. Yes, if there was no gravity, then second law of thermodynamics would say that everything disappears. Of course, unless Oakley. I mean, this is a classic case of the modus tollens. There is no barrier, there is no dome. Therefore, gas does not require a barrier to be contained by the Earth. It's a simple, rather better and easier to understand modus tollens than the one that QE, who didn't even know what modus tollens was until Brenda told him.
Well, really, all you need is the knowledge that a full cylinder gas weighs more than an empty one does.
Yeah.
That will do it.
And
if that were not true, if there was no gravitational acceleration and all those molecules are moving equally in all directions, you would never see a difference in weight.
Yep. Exactly right. The fact that you can weigh a gas means that it's being accelerated to the Earth.
Correct.
Because if you wouldn't weigh anything if it was not being accelerated to the Earth, it was all going uniformly, as Blue said. That means the pressure would be the top of your bottle and the bottom of the bottle would have exactly the same force, and therefore the force on the containing bottle would be neutral, be zero. It would have no weight.
Right.
So it's basically like dropping something in water, right? So the way you're describing it seems to make sense. So if you're dropping, like, let's say a steel box full of water with a ping pong ball in it, just for a quick example. In other words, the box is and the water, it's gonna go down through the water. But if you open one side of the steel box, then the water's just gonna join all the other water. It's not gonna keep going down with the box. It's gonna just be going back and forth, whatever. I mean, wait.
I lost.
Talk about that one for a second.
I didn't understand your scenario.
So let's compare the box in air to a box in the water. So now we have a metal box with fuck it, we'll just use the balloons again. We have the box in the water, except for we have the box full of water instead of air. So we want to use the same median. So the metal box is going to fall down in the water the same way, and the balloon, to me, the balloons.
You made a really good point, Brian. You made a really good point earlier when you said consider air resistance or something, or perhaps you somehow got onto that where it wasn't in free fall. It has to be falling, accelerating down at 9.8 meters per second. If it's in water, it very definitely is not falling down in free fall 9.8 meters per second, and this being refrained, and therefore that means you will get density effects inside your box. It has to be falling down with the acceleration due to gravity, and if it's being impeded by either air resistance or the resistance of water, then you will still have buoyancy effects inside your box, and the helium balloon will be the top.
We'll use the egg. We'll use the egg in this example. We'll use something neutrally buoyant, and then we'll use something that floats. So we'll use a egg and then a ping pong ball to replicate the air and the helium balloon. So we would expect them basically to do the same thing if the box is full of water. So basically, the one with air would go to the top. It'd already be at the top, and the one that's neutral would be in the middle of the box. But when we dropped it in the water, it would go to the top, wouldn't it? The one that's neutral buoyant.
I'm gonna have to draw a diagram because I'm losing track of what you're saying.
Okay, just think of this: the neutrally buoyant egg that's in the middle of the box. That's the box full of water.
Well, it could be anywhere. It could be the top of the box. It's neutral, so it could be top or bottom or middle.
Yeah, well, let's just put it in the middle, just for
It'll then stay there, right? Yeah.
And we got it just barely submerged, and now we drop it in the water. You say it'll stay there as the metal box drags it down. You think the neutrally buoyant egg will stay in position?
Yeah, the neutrally buoyant eggs will stay in the same place in the water. So we've got a box full of water, and in the middle of the water, we've got a neutrally buoyant egg. Yes, that no matter what you do, however you accelerate it, it will remain in that position where it started from, even if you move it up or down or let it fall. Yes, for neutrally buoyant.
What if it didn't do that? How would you describe the answer, or would it be a problem?
It would be a problem.
Okay, so if I make a box that's denser than water and sinks, and it's full of water, and I have something neutrally buoyant, and I drop it, it shouldn't go to the top. It should, for the most part, remain in position while the box is accelerating down.
Yes. But obviously it's dependent. You'd have to get it exactly neutrally buoyant, and obviously, as you say, the way to test that would be if it stayed in the middle. If you left it there, you could test that it's neutrally buoyant by leaving it in that position for 10 minutes, say, and then seeing if it moves up or down. And if it remains neutrally buoyant, and it stays in position, then you know for a fact that it's neutrally buoyant. And obviously, you might, if you jiggle it, if you drop something, you could cause it to slosh or something. You could have other effects, but fundamentally, it should stay in the same position. Yes.
So what if we submerge that box sideways underwater, like comparing it to the box up in the air? So we put a motor on it, whatever, and we start going sideways with it. So the one with helium in it, the one with just air in it, I want to say, and the one that's neutrally buoyant. What would happen then with the box? To compare it to the one above the surface, what would happen with the one that we propel sideways, accelerate sideways, I want to say.
So the scenario you want to discuss now is, again, box full of water with a neutrally buoyant thing in it, and doing it sideways. That would not be affected. That would be.
What about the buoyant one?
Right. So we've now got a box full of air and a helium balloon in it. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's a water version of that. So we're underwater now.
Okay. Okay, so got water. Got a ping pong. Okay, a ping pong ball then. So you've got a ping pong ball in some water in a box. Is that right? And then we accelerate it
all the way filled with water, and then a neutrally buoyant egg in the middle.
Yes, if you were to accelerate it if you had a ping pong ball in some water in a box, and then you accelerated the box horizontally, then the ping pong ball would do what the helium balloon did in the car thing, and it would then go to the front edge of the box, because all the water would you have an acceleration field, and whenever you have an acceleration field, whether it's due to gravity or to do with centrifugal force or accelerating a box, the thing that's least dense will always be displaced by things that are more dense than the acceleration. So the ping pong ball would then shoot to the front of the box.
I'm not really interested thank you, but What about the neutrally buoyant one? That's kind of what I'm wondering.
I thought you asked me about the non-neutrally buoyant.
Yeah, I did.
No,
I did. That's what I'm saying.
okay, I
Thank you
told
for
you, I
that, but
gave you the answer. Then I gave you the answer. The neutrally buoyant. Nothing would happen. It would remain in place.
Okay, it'll remain in place. Okay, but
Yes, the neutrally buoyant one would remain in place. The ping pong ball would go to the front.
Above the surface, the balloon with air in it that's basically neutrally buoyant. I mean, close to it. It'll go to the back.
So above
So
the
why
surface.
does it behave?
So I didn't
Just think
understand
about it for a
what
second.
I didn't understand your scenario. You said above the surface. I didn't understand what that was about.
You said the neutrally buoyant one would remain in place, but above the surface, the balloon, the neutrally buoyant
Above the
balloon.
surface. What? Sorry, what above the surface?
Goes
What?
to the back.
I don't understand what you mean
won't
by
let,
above
you won't
the
let me
surface.
finish one little sentence, Rumpus, man. If you just settle down just a little bit and let me
I
finish
don't. You
my
keep on
question.
repeating this phrase above the surface. I don't know what you mean by that. What are you referring? You talking about the box being above the surface of water or something, or what?
Allow me to finish, bro. Okay, the neutrally buoyant balloon up above in our first experiment went to the back of the box when we accelerated sideways. Okay, now
Yes.
you're saying the neutrally buoyant.
No. Yes. Sorry. Sorry. The helium balloon would go to the front of the box. The neutrally buoyant thing would stay in place when you accelerate it horizontally.
Why doesn't that happen in the box in the air?
Sorry. So what's the scenario now you're worrying about? The box with air in it and an air balloon. Sorry. Describe the scenario again. You're now worried about.
Well, you said up above the balloon with air in it will go to the back when we take off.
No. The helium. I said a helium balloon would go to the front. So let's try again.
Yeah, the helium balloon will go to the front, and the neutrally buoyant. You keep talking about the helium balloon, but don't think about that for 1 second. Think
Okay.
about
All right. Okay. Yeah, the neutrally buoyant wouldn't move. The neutrally buoyant one would not move. The neutrally buoyant. Well, of course, it's not filled with air, of course, because the balloon filled with air is not neutrally buoyant. It's heavier than air. But if you filled it with some gas that made it neutrally buoyant, you had partial air and helium inside a balloon that made it neutrally buoyant, it would not move one way or the other if you accelerated it horizontally or vertically, or dropped it.
Okay, got you. And so that's the same behavior. So that's making sense of it. So and then you said if it didn't do that, we would have a problem. I don't think it'd be that hard to test this underwater, because if it's going to go up, it's going to be obvious. Like I would expect it to move around. I wouldn't be like, look, it's not buoyant, it's moving around a little bit. But if it just went immediately to the top when we dropped the box, then what would be the problem? If the neutrally buoyant one went to the top when we dropped it in the water, what would be the problem?
Well, the problem would be that it's not comporting with what we understand by buoyancy in physics and acceleration.
Shout out to David Lee for $4.99. He says, I just Googled it. The derivative of jerk is called jounce, also known as snap. I'll be dang.
Hear that, Rumpus?
Yes, I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. I think I've heard of jerk, and yes, I wasn't aware. I forgot. Was aware of those before, but I've forgotten them.
I had a question, man. Rumpus, you say whatever you want. You know you like doing these thought experiments with me. But okay, so let's think about this. I had a question, man. This is directly to Blue. How did he get the density? I thought density was mass. I mean, how can you get the density of something without the mass? That is exactly what density is. I don't get it. Sure, there's an explanation, but can you
Cavendish
can I break it down as simple as possible?
You're talking about Cavendish now. Suddenly, you didn't mention it. So you just introduced a question. You didn't mention that you were talking about Cavendish. Well, Blue has got right. So you're talking about how Cavendish worked out the density of the Earth without determining the mass first. I must admit, this is a piece of peculiar maths that I didn't understand initially, and Blue has somehow managed to decode it in some amazing way. So yeah.
Let me give you my very quick. Explanation. They already knew the number they needed. That's how. Very simple.
No, they didn't. They didn't know the density of the Earth.
No, they didn't know the density of the Earth. They knew the number they needed to.
No, they didn't, because they didn't know that's what they were trying to find out, and it was a controversial thing, as I understand it. They thought it was much lower than it actually was, and it was a surprising result that the Cavendish got. So they didn't know what they wanted to get. I mean, Blue would know more about this. Was it a controversial number, Blue?
They had a general idea. I think. I think even Newton had thoughts about it. He thought the density of the Earth was going to end up somewhere between 5 and 6. times that of water. I believe.
Right. Yes, I mean you're right. Newton did have a
But-
number, but I didn't. I thought it was off.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't right. I mean, he didn't have a correct number.
But that's quite a good. That's quite a good guess.
Yeah, if I'm right about that, I'm not sure I'm right about that, Rumpus. I'm not sure what it's. I don't remember now.
Yeah, I mean, because
But-
it is 5, isn't it? It is close to 5, isn't it?
5.45.
4.5. Okay.
5.45 or 5.48, somewhere right in there.
Yeah.
That's what
Okay,
it ends
when
up
you're-
being.
Is
Right,
it
okay.
possible? Is it even? I mean, can we level with each? Is it possible that they had a number they wanted to achieve or close to it?
Well, I suppose you could say it's possible, but what it doesn't explain is how you know how we're able to do it again and again and again and get the same number.
Blue, surely Cavendish shows you a procedure for how he didn't use any presumptions. He just simply used the results of his experiment plus all that weird maths and ratios and things to end
Yeah.
up with a number.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
He
if he
didn't
knew
use any-
if he knew a number that he was targeting, he certainly kept it a secret.
There's nothing in his
Yeah,
procedure,
he said-
Brian. There's nothing in his procedure. You can follow the logic and the maths that has nothing in it that has anything that presumes anything except presumably the volume of the Earth. Presumably he does use.
Well, I'm just saying that most everything in the model, if you're already making a model, then you have expectations. I'm not even saying that it's cheating. Yeah, if you get the same number over and over, then that leads credence to supporting the measurement. But I'm just saying most modeling and stuff, then there's there might be one or two things you got to get from scratch, but I think there's a lot of expectations.
Brian, the only thing that he used, the only thing he didn't, that did not come out from his experiment, I think, is the volume of the Earth. But correct me if I'm wrong, Blue. Everything else he derived directly from what he observed. So he didn't rely on anything external support except for the volume of the Earth.
Well, he had the radius of the or the diameter.
Yeah,
of the
the
Earth.
radius. Yeah, the radius volume, same thing. Yeah.
So basically, go ahead, Billy. Sorry.
Yeah, he had I think is it the diameter 41,800,000 feet.
So that's the only thing that he used externally to his experiments. That's the only piece of information that he needed to take out of the existing literature. He was able to get everything else was empirical, derived from what he did in his experiment.
So if density is mass times volume, and you
Divided
didn't
by
have the mass,
volume.
yeah,
Mass
I mean
divided by
over
volume.
volume, you know what I meant. But look, if you don't have the mass and you don't have the volume, how can you have the density if that is?
Well, he did
mass
have the volume.
Okay, he did have the volume.
He had the volume. Yeah, he would have had the volume, but what he was relating to was the effect of a mass, a 1 spherical foot mass of lead, which is the equivalent of 10 point some odd spherical feet of water, and he was relating that in the attraction, the effect on the torsion balance. He was relating
Okay, I didn't know
to the size of the Earth. He didn't. That's all he knew. He knew how many spherical feet the Earth represented. So you can make
So
that
his only
direct-
presupposition was the volume.
Correct.
I didn't
Yeah,
know
if you want to say it was a presupposition, they had by then very accurately measured the radius of the Earth, the circumference of the Earth, the diameter of the Earth. All that was known.
And what is this figure? So this is basically big G, right? That's what we're ultimately talking about, right?
Well, that's what I was after. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you do the science labs, you use the Cavendish experiment to work out big G, but Cavendish himself didn't actually bother with that because he did it in 2 stages. He effectively worked out the value of big G, but he didn't bother to write it down. He didn't bother to discuss it. He went straight from that, having determined that value in effect, to determining the density of the Earth. So he didn't. But in physics labs around the world, you just use it to determine G, and then we don't bother with the density of the Earth calculation. But Cavendish went straight to the density of the Earth. So in passing, in effect, he discovered the value of G, although he did not explicitly write the value down in his paper.
That is
What was
correct.
the first? What? Give me two of the first most useful things we applied to the model. Once we had a number for big G. Just give me two if you can. I'm trying to understand this.
We calculated the density of the Earth.
No. I'm talking about as a result of that. As a
Yeah.
result of all that.
Well, you can work out that. Well, we can work out the mass of the sun, for instance, and we can work out the masses of the planets from once you've got knowledge of G, big G. You can then say what the mass. If you then know the velocity, the orbital velocity of a planet around the sun, you can then say, having worked out what big G is, you can then work out the mass of the sun. And thereby also the mass of the planets.
So we get the mass of the sun before we get the distance to the sun. Am I right with that? What do we got to start with? If we're going to model all this stuff, I'm just wondering where do we start? With Kepler's laws, I would imagine.
You'd need to know the distance to the sun to work out the mass of the No, sorry. When I said work out the mass of the planet, no, you don't need to know the mass of the planet. Sorry.
Yeah, we need the planets, right? Yeah.
No, sorry, you do not know that you can't work out the mass of the planets from knowing the mass of the sun, because everything would even a particle of dust would have the same orbital behavior as a big planet.
Exactly.
So you can't work out the mass of the planet from that. You can only work out the mass of the sun, but still you can use G to work out the mass of the sun using big G.
Okay, but we'd have to know the distance, you're saying? So would we? I might have misunderstood you, but would we or would we not?
Yes, I think you would. Yes.
Or would that help us get a distance?
No, it wouldn't help you get a distance. No, you would need to know the distance. If you wanted to work out the mass of the sun, you would need to know the distance, I think, because you're going to be using m over. Yeah, I think you'd need to know the distance of the sun to work out the mass of the sun. I think you would need to know the distance of, say, an Earth, something was orbiting it.
Because I know Newton had I've heard him talked about with big G, but he had the sun at 1,000,000 miles. That would have meant his density or whatever, his big G would have been off 93 times, right?
No, he couldn't. No, he couldn't work out what big G was because he didn't. If you knew,
it wasn't even part of Newton's equation.
Right. Yeah. Newton's F equals ma. Right. So now Blue.
No. Wait. Newton's gravitational law said that the force of attraction between two masses is proportional to the product of the masses divided by the square of the distance between their centers. That's what it said.
But so he had nothing to do with big G, though. Can we?
Proportional.
Is that right or wrong?
He sort of did and sort of didn't, Brian. It depends on how you look at this. When you say something is proportional to something else, you have automatically implied a constant of proportionality.
Yeah.
And that's what G is.
At that period of time, it was conventional not to include the proportional, the constant of proportionality. Right. It was just way you describe things in science. The literature said you would say this is proportional to that, and it just wasn't, for some reason, it wasn't in the culture to then say. I mean, do you understand, Brian? If I say y is proportional to x, that's the same thing as saying y is equal to k, a constant, times x.
Equals y.
Hold on. Are you aware of that equivalence? Are you aware those two things are the same?
Yeah. Yes.
Great. So in other words, Newton said y is proportional to x, which is the same thing as saying y. Well, whatever
just a ratio, right? A ratio.
Yes. So in other words, although he didn't use the word, it just wasn't in the convention of the time to stick in a letter to represent what the proportional factor is, but it was implied, as Blue said, that it was there. And Cavendish, for some reason, even at Cavendish's time, it was still the convention not to give names to these proportional constants. It was only 100 years later that it became formal to say, well, you shouldn't really just say y is proportional to x. You should say y is equal to k times x. And then they had to start giving names to these constants. And when they decided, well, okay, we'll call the one that Newton was implying, we'll call that g, big G.
I'm good with that. So in other words, Newton came up with the concept, and Cavendish narrowed it down and
Measured its value. Effectively measured its value, although he did not write down the result. But if he had to have gone through, and Blue can confirm this away, that effectively the numbers that he generated, he effectively calculated big G, although he didn't call it big G, and he didn't write it down in his paper.
what did he do? Do it in his head or something?
Well, no, it's implied in the numbers. He just didn't write down a sentence. No. The calculations that he used effectively used the value of big G, but he didn't write a separate line in his paper saying the proportional constant again is equal to this value. He just didn't write that line in this thing.
You ain't got to entertain that, bro. I was just joking anyway, man. So it does sound a little bit like a Texas sharpshooter fallacy, a little bit, man. But maybe not. At least it's possible, but maybe it is unlikely. Wait, you said it's possible. I mean, for you to say it's not possible.
No, it's not possible. No, whatever. I don't know what you mean by. I have vaguely familiar term, but if you're implying that somehow that Newton was not implying constant, you're wrong. He was.
No, not that. I'm talking about as far as big G. Like I think they had an idea of what number. I asked Blue if it's possible they had a number.
But it doesn't make any difference. His experiment points to a number. You can't. Well, okay, well, I could. That's irrelevant. The point is, his experiment, the evidence that he collected, effectively set the value of big G. Whatever he might have thought about it, it's irrelevant what his opinion may have been about what it might be. His experiment explicitly, in effect, implicitly, I should say, gives a value for big G.
So when was Kepler's laws? Will you tell me about Kepler?
Right. Yeah, he was 100 years before Newton. Yeah, 100 years before Newton. Yeah, and it was using Newton's law that he was able to show that Kepler's laws came out of Newton's universal law of gravitation.
And what's Kepler's law? What's the equation?
Well, there were three of them. One is that the periodicity is was it the cube is proportional? The cube of the radius is the period of thing is proportional to the cube of the radius over the.
Look it up real quick, man.
Okay.
No. First one is that.
And also the other one is that there's equal areas swept. The three are. First one is that orbits are ellipses. The second one is that an equal area is swept out through it in a unit of time along it. And the third one is the ratio between the period and the radius. But if it's the third one you want, okay, I'll go and.
No, start back over. The first one is.
The first one is that orbits are elliptical. The second one.
It's just a claim?
What?
It's just a claim that orbits are ellipses?
Yes. His first law, I believe, as I remember, is that orbits are elliptical.
Yeah, and the sun,
right to claim that?
And the sun is at one of the foci.
That can't be the first one, right? Got to be something
it is the first one.
indicating that, right?
Well, it's from observations, Brian.
I'll be fine with just rumpus, Brenda. I know he knows a lot more than you.
But you can calculate the eccentricity of the orbit from the data. We did that.
That's what I'm asking for is the formula.
There are three formulas. Well, sorry, there are two formulas. One is that the amount of area swept out is the same per unit time in this elliptical orbit, and the third formula, the third law, is that the period squared is proportional to the radius cubed. That's it.
So it's just ratios, right?
Yeah.
And a declaration.
When I was in high school, we took Kepler's original data.
Brendan, will you please let well go ahead. It ain't my
and we plotted it on graph paper. And then from the graph, the plot, we derived Kepler's laws from the plot.
Good stuff, Brenda. I didn't do that.
In high school. I mean,
I'd rather talk to somebody honest, Brenda, man. I believe Rumpus, whatever he says, whether it's right or wrong, I know what he says is honest.
I probably couldn't do it today. I probably couldn't.
Yeah, so the third law, there are three laws of Kepler's, has three laws. The third one, which is a formula, well, actually the second one, yes, not so much. The third law is that the period of the orbit is proportional to the cube of the radius of the, so the distance away, so the radius of the orbit cubed, the period squared is proportional to the radius cubed. So those are his three laws. One is you get ellipses. The second one is that the area swept out. So in other words, because it's an ellipse and the sun is at one focus, as Brenda or whoever it was saying, Olam, the area. If you think of an area, I mean,
Let me ask another question, Rumpus, before you get hung up. Is there anywhere in reality we can apply these laws, or is it just in space? I don't mean to say reality, but like stuff we can actually do.
Well, normally space is the thing because because that's where you have orbits, and this is all about orbits. But I mean, you could, in theory, have the same issue if you had an electrostatic charge.
I mean, does it tie in with centrifugal?
No, you can't. No, you couldn't do what I just said because of gravity. Sorry, no. But you basically need to do it as orbits because gravity interferes with other such things. So yes, really, it's basically orbits. I think. I don't think you can do.
So the only assumptions is or not. Let's say not assumptions. I'll say presuppositions would be the volume, which they say they had that, from, and then an elliptical pattern.
Right. So you're mixing up.
Nothing
You're
else
talking about
at all?
volume now. Sorry, you're mixing up what Cavendish did with Kepler. Is that what did you mean to do that?
No, I'm just combining it all. I'm trying to get the big picture, right? That's
Okay. Well, they're completely separate. Well, they're separate things. I mean, you shouldn't really conflate.
Yeah. Well, we had to get them. I mean, it had to. I'm just trying to understand the model.
Kepler worked out his laws before Cavendish. Kepler, as Brenda said, they're observations, and Kepler observed that all the orbits are elliptical. He observed that the area swept out by an orbit is the same. That from one position to the next, it sweeps out the same area if you include the area to the focus. I really have to show you a diagram. I suspect you're not understanding what I mean by this. And then the third law he observed this, was that the period of the planets was proportional to the cube of the radius of the planets.
So if we did an analemma, like if we did a once a year, not once a year, but like a once a month analemma with, say, Venus, what would we see? As far as once a month at the same time, sidereal time. So
Venus.
What we expect to see
goes round in
what would it look like to show an ellipse?
Venus, from our point of view, forms a cross shape, doesn't it? It's very peculiar, and it gets bigger and smaller by factors of 2, and Venus's orbit is quite complicated, and it's not just a simple. Whereas an analemma is an orbit of what the sun looks like, and that's less complicated than Venus or Mars, or Mercury. The orbit of Venus is complicated because you've got two things moving, whereas the sun, because we're effectively the same distance from the sun, although we're on an elliptical orbit, so it's slightly different. Therefore, the motion of the sun in the sky is much simpler than Venus or Mars or Mercury.
Okay, so they did need the distance to the sun to work out the mass of the sun.
I think yes, I believe so. Yes, I believe you need to know. Yes, I think I'm correct in saying that to work out the mass of the sun, you need to know the value of big G and you need to know the distance to the sun. Yes.
So if we're trying to model, if we're trying to start from scratch.
Sorry, hold on. You said that the period of the square of the period is equal to the cube of the radius.
Proportional to the cube. The form does.
Okay, and we have big G, so
yeah,
we can know the distance of the sun just from the period of Earth orbiting it.
Wait, so Newton.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, you're right.
Why didn't Newton?
Yes, that's a good point actually. Yes, that's a good point actually. You'd think, but we didn't know. That's a good point.
Yeah, Newton should have had it then.
So actually, I was thinking that earlier, about 10 minutes ago. 10 minutes ago, I was thinking exactly the same things you're saying now, Chuck. Yes, that if we know but we don't know the mass of the sun. Hold on. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, there's a problem here. You've got two unknowns because you use this to. No, I think you have to. No, you can only because we don't know the mass of the sun.
I think
Remember.
Chunk's right, man.
So remember the actual formula. I'll post is the actual formula is t squared. The period squared is equal to 4 pi squared divided by big G divided by the mass of the sun times r cubed. That's the proportionality factor is 4 pi squared divided by big G divided by m. So I think you
Doesn't Big G involve the mass of the sun, though? Are you? Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
That's what I said earlier. You asked me what you would do with big G, and I said you could work out the mass of the sun with it. That's why I said, would it be useful for? That was one of the example I gave, and I think I'm correct in saying that. But now Chike's pointing out that I must admit, I had a thought 10 minutes ago as well.
Yeah, but
hold on.
But according to your formula, we need both. One of them.
Yes, you need. Yeah, you can't do. Yes, you need. Yes, you need. Yes, you can't do. Yes, as I said. Yes, you've got two unknowns there. You've got the mass of the sun and the distance. So no, you can't. So yes. So whew, yes. So you can't work out the mass of the sun without knowing the distance. Yes. So we couldn't. So when I may have said when I said earlier that you could work out the mass of the sun, and you asked me whether you need to know the distance. Yes, you do. You need to work out the distance. You need to have the distance to then work out the mass of the sun. So you can't have one without the other. You either need to start off knowing the mass of the sun, which obviously is a much more difficult thing to work out. We can't sort of get there and sort of play around with it. So the only way of doing it, you need to work out the distance of the sun. But having got the distance of the sun, you can then use big G to work out the mass of the sun, as I said about 15 minutes ago.
Okay, so let's talk about how we got the distance of the sun originally. Well, we ain't even got to go back to Newton because whatever he did was wrong.
What?
Who first got the correct distance to the sun?
Well, the first decent one was calculated by
Cassini,
by Cassini when they're part of an operation with the French that worked out by working out the distance to Mars. They had by triangulation. They had an observation from Paris and from I think what is now French Guiana. They did a triangulation on the Mars when it was in opposition, and by working out the distance to Mars and using Kepler's laws, they were then able to come up with a reasonably accurate distance to the sun. And then obviously 100 years after, so that was about 1681, I think. And then 100 years later, Cook, using a transit of Venus observation along with other people, got a more accurate version of it. But the first
Cassini didn't have big G accurate big G yet.
No, you don't need.
Either,
No,
right?
hold on, Plumb. But you
don't know where I'm going with it, do you?
No, you need. You're about to say, do you need big G to work out the distance to the sun? No, you don't.
I just said that. No, you don't know where I'm going because you don't let me talk, Rumpus. For fuck's sake, man.
Okay.
Yeah, let him finish.
Okay, I'm trying to get to the bottom. I'm just asking questions, and like a think tank.
Okay.
Okay, you know a lot of stuff, so I'm just trying to figure who had what, and so we'll say let me just get to another point. Who was the first person to apply big G to the solar system?
Well, we needed the distance of the sun. So in other words, to do that, you needed the distance of the sun, and that was, as I say, Cassini. Although I think Huygens, this is the thing that Riley goes on about, the fact that he claimed he had another way of doing it. He assumed that Venus was the same size as the Earth, and then from that he worked out a distance of the sun. But it wasn't very good. It was the only thing they had. It wasn't until Cassini in 1681 or whatever it was, using the triangulation technique I described, did they end up with a decent value to the distance of the sun. Once you've got that decent value to the sun, then I presume, well, that would have been 1681. So I would imagine that Newton could have done it then. He was around in 1680 odd, so he could have then worked out the mass of the sun.
What presuppositions go into the triangulation? If we're going to triangulate Mars,
right?
I mean, if we're going to triangulate the movement of Mars and then apply that to the sun.
You don't need the movement of Mars. All you need to triangulate to the Mars is to have two objects, two observations from a long way away on the Earth, and of course you need to know that the Earth is curved. is a sphere. So you need to take that into account because that will change the angles. So once you know that know the radius of the Earth, you can then triangulate to Mars. And once having triangulated to Mars, you then know the absolute distance to Mars. And from that and Kepler's laws, you can then work out the absolute distance from Earth to the Sun. And once you've got the absolute distance to the Sun, you can then use Newton's laws to work out what the mass of the Sun is.
So does that method triangulating to Mars? Can we do the same thing for Jupiter, for Saturn?
Yes.
And Neptune,
No,
Uranus?
no, I think it's too far away. The reason they had to do, you could argue, why can't you triangulate to the Sun directly? It's too far away. Mars is
They had to assume it was close.
Sorry?
So
Well,
they
it's
had
not.
to assume it wasn't too far away.
Well, we know it's not far away. It doesn't change in size as it moves around. We
Well,
know.
I'm trying to avoid any of the we know, and I think
Well,
you're
we do
doing
know
a
that.
good job.
We know the Sun doesn't
But
change in size.
let's be honest and let's
So
start
we know.
with what
Well, we are
what
honest.
we
We
do
know
know,
the
what
Sun.
we're
We
figuring
are
out.
honest. They knew that the Sun did not change in size over the period of a day. Therefore, they knew it was a long way away.
Mars, they knew how did they know that Mars wasn't too far away?
Well, they worked out the distance to Mars by doing this triangulation thing. They
Right,
knew
but
that the Sun. Hold on,
didn't.
but they tried to do.
But if
If you try and use triangulation to get the distance to the Sun, you can't do it. It's too far away. The resolution you require of your instruments is too great to be able to work out where the distance to the Sun is via triangulation. But this Mars is sufficiently close. It's much closer than the Sun. They were able to use it.
I don't know if I can I jump in with a question
Yeah,
here
go ahead,
for Brian? For Brian. Brian, how do you account for the retrograde motion of Mars?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, Brenda. I'm trying to figure out all this stuff, but I'm trying to go in it with no presupposition. I'm all right. I'll give the presupposition of the curve. We obviously need that, so I'll concede that one. But I want to be. I'll just if he knows, I'm trying to kind of pick his brains a little bit, but I'm trying to figure out where we started from. Like, where did we start from? And we seem to be working our way backwards. This always happens. And
I
it's
don't
kind of
know.
aggravating.
Going forward, just how do you account for the fact that Mars turns around, goes the other way, and then turns around again and continues to orbit with all the rest of these celestial luminaries? How does that make sense?
I don't know. You answer. How does it make sense? Because
I
Earth's a
don't
ball
have
and
an
it's
answer.
orbiting around the sun. That's what you're going to say, right?
Yeah, we
Anyway,
know why. We know why.
I'm not worried about that. I'm literally you're throwing off the conversation because I just told you my goal is to try and get as close as I can to the beginning, and make
Your
sense out of
claim,
it.
your claim that we're going backwards is wrong. The only thing we had to start off with Newton's law
From
of gravity.
Cavendish to Newton to Kepler to Cassini. That's exactly backwards, bro.
No.
Right. No, right. So Newton worked out the universal law of gravitation. He did not require Kepler to do that, or he just worked that out from. Although he then was able to say, "I can explain Kepler." So Kepler was historically Kepler had made these observations about the way the things orbited. Newton then came up with a theory of universal gravity. We then explained Kepler's observations. Then the Cassini then made an observation to work out the distance of the Sun. But this is all irrelevant to what Newton did. This is independent. So these things are not.
I'm not trying to figure out what one person did. Yeah, so don't get the wrong impression.
Well, you said they're coming. You seem to think. You claimed that they're coming in reverse, as though people were taking knowledge from the future to work out what they were doing, and they're not doing any of that.
No, that's the way I'm getting it right now.
Well, you said it was reversed.
Let's start back to the beginning.
Okay, the first person. Right. So historically, Kepler did an observation. As Brenda observed, he found these 3 rules of the way the planets behaved. Newton then theoretically worked out in his head, using inverse square law.
Wait, slow down.
So Newton.
Kepler, we talked about the 3 laws, right? So Kepler.
Yes. So Kepler. So the first thing that happened. Kepler worked out those 3 laws. He observed them. So Kepler observed those 3 laws. That was the first starting point. Newton then explained them with the universal law of gravitation.
So Kepler was able to do that. What information did he need besides the Earth's
telescope
sphere and
what do you need
rotating
with the
around
telescope?
the sun?
Kepler
Or orbiting.
Kepler had Tycho Brahe's data. Tycho Brahe was an astronomer who made a lot of observations over a number of years, and Kepler had access to that data.
Right. So he had the observations and the data, and and so he the only so he just so he's pretty much the base of the model, right? Is it?
Yes,
Would
he just
Kepler?
observed.
So
Yeah,
where
so
was
Kepler.
Copernicus? If we're going to be fair, Copernicus, wasn't he right after Tycho? Right? I thought.
Yeah, Kepler
Oh, no,
came
he was after
after.
Ptolemy. Never mind. Sorry, I
No,
got that wrong.
sorry, no. Copernicus came after
Ptolemy.
Kepler. Ptolemy. Well, Ptolemy was in BC, a couple of years AD, first century AD or something. I think Ptolemy. So Kepler. Tycho Brahe made some observations. Kepler used the information from Tycho Brahe to say these are the rules about the way things orbit. Just by observation, he didn't come up with any maths for it. He just simply said these are the rules that I've observed, that the period of the orbit is proportional to the cube of the radius. So that he worked out that rule. Then Newton then said, I've got a theory using the inverse square law that explains Kepler's observations. And then Cassini then worked out the distance to the sun after 1681 is after Newton did his when was that's about the same time actually.
Yeah, about the same.
Yeah.
Newton published the Principia in 1687.
Yeah, right. Okay, so it's actually after. Okay.
By the way, it's pronounced Tuco Bly, not Tycho. He's Danish. It's the Y is U. Tuco.
We're not calling him that. No,
Okay, I'll go do 30 lashes.
Yes, yeah, Alan's pretty hot on his pronunciation language. Yes, Cassini worked out the distance to the sun independently of Newton, and he did use Kepler's laws though. So he by knowing the orbital period of Mars and the distance to Mars by his triangulation trick that he did along with a part of the Paris and French Guinea Guyana thing. That's a big expedition to do that. He then worked out the distance to the sun via working out the distance to Mars. And using Kepler's laws, he was able to work out the distance to the sun from knowing the distance.
Can we find that math anywhere?
Yeah, if you go and look at what Cassini's calculations, yeah, it's well documented what Cassini did.
So let me ask: did Kepler apply his laws to anything?
Well, it's an observation. He just observed that's how planets behave.
They apply to orbiting. They apply to orbiting bodies.
Yeah, I wonder if he applied any of them.
Well, no, he didn't apply. No, he observed them, Brian. He said he
observed.
Sure. So he observed that this is what happens. So he didn't apply them. He just observed that was the rule.
Kepler was a mathematician. What would he apply it to?
Also, it's just good to know things, Brian. Good thing.
Sure,
good
I'm not
to know.
arguing that. You're giving me contention that I'm not inserting. I'm just asking questions.
Brian,
he
just observed that all the planets observed these rules that he determined. So obviously it was an amazing exercise. I mean, determining from the data, working out that this is what was going on was very clever. And he also worked out, I think, the velocity of the things at any one point, which is a very tricky calculation. He was one hell of a mathematician, actually. I mean,
he didn't have the distance to nothing, and he didn't have the
correct. He didn't
have big G. He didn't have
he didn't have
any
big G.
distances.
No, he didn't have any distances. He just knew the ratios.
So in other words, any volume.
So he didn't know the mass of anything. He didn't know the distance, the absolute distances. What he knew was that Mars, for instance, was say 1 1/4 a greater radius than the Earth, and Venus was say 2/3 the radius of the Earth. He worked out the ratios of the orbits, but he did not know the absolute distances.
Gotcha. So it's just the ratios. Okay.
Yes.
And the first. So then we're going to say that. So did Newton apply any? Did it? Newton ever?
He had. I mean, if you're just talking about his universal law of gravitation, I mean, he worked out the theoretical basis for Kepler's laws, and he then said the Kepler's laws are obeying my. I mean, use it as a validation. He wanted to check whether or not his laws were correct, and then he was able to then show that Kepler's laws were a necessary consequence of his laws. But other than that, I don't think he. I mean, he
How do we
obviously did
suppose he
loads.
come up with 1,000,000 miles? Like, what was he?
I don't
What
that
was
that I don't know. That I
It's a
don't
good
know.
guess, but I'm just it had to be something. So I'm just think for a
Well,
second.
I'm not sure that he did.
What would
Okay.
what would he have had to figure
Well, I
wrong?
don't know that he did do that. Okay, did Newton? Okay, Newton's estimation of the distance. I don't know whether he. I think he based it on. Didn't he base it on some false data that he got? Something like that.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm.
I think actually yes. I think he used some other. Yes. Hold on. And he actually his calculation that he got was correct, and then he threw it away. Or I might be getting mixed up with another story that he had. He may have tried to work it out, and he was basing his information on some incorrect data. I don't know. Let me look at this up. Oh, here we go. Yes. Oh, right. Okay, so he did come up with the distance of the sun, but I think. Yes, I've actually looked at this before. No, he didn't. No, hold on. I don't think he did. No, I think people are asking if he did, but I don't
He
think
had
he
1
did.
million. He calculated 1,000,000 miles.
Brian, give me a citation for
his
that.
calculation he was off.
You're saying he's done that. Can you please tell me, give me a citation for who says he said that?
I mean, I thought everybody agreed to that. That's something,
No, I don't.
know.
I'm not aware of it. I'm not
Well,
aware of it.
I think I read somewhere that he estimated that the light from the sun will take about 8 minutes to reach the Earth. When he was, well, late at its life, not early.
I don't think he did calculate the distance between the Earth and the Sun. I think you're wrong in saying that, Brian. I think you need to provide me with some information because I don't think.
Well, a lot
he
of
did
other
calculate.
people are wrong too, because that's common talk as far as I know.
Okay, yeah, but there's a common talk amongst your group of what the Earth is flat. So
No, against everybody. We didn't make that up. Maybe somebody did make it up, but nobody else in here has heard that that was like the first estimation.
No, the first one was done the
1,000,000
Greek
miles to
times.
Newton.
The Greeks, Aristotle, I think, or was it Hipparchus, made an estimation to the distance of the sun. He did it by working out an angle from the moon and working out what was 90 degrees, and he ended up something was way off. So people in history have come up with lots of. The first
Aristarchus.
was Aristarchus. Thank you very much. Sorry, not Hipparchus here. Aristarchus.
So you're gonna.
But the first decent measurement was by Cassini in 1680 or something. That was the first proper triangulation technique to work out, and using Kepler's laws as well. So they first worked out the distance to Mars from the Earth as it was in opposition, and then they used Kepler's laws to work out the distance to the Sun. That was the first decent scientific method of working out the distance of the Sun.
Okay, when was Newton? I thought he was
same time. Yeah, same time. 1680, as Blue said, I think it was 1680s. He published Principia. I think he did most of his work he might have done most of his work before that, but a few years before that. But say 1670s, 1680s is when all this action happened with Newton and Cassini.
Okay, so Cassini used Kepler's laws, and then you say he triangulated Mars with the moon.
Yes, not with the moon. No. He triangulated Mars from the Earth, and having then worked out the absolute distance using triangulation to Mars, he then was able to use Kepler's ratios, because Kepler's worked out the ratios of the planets, of the radii. But if he then knew the difference between Mars's and Earth radius, he could then work out what the absolute value of all the radiuses of the planets were, including the radius of the Earth to the Sun.
So the ratios, when do the ratios not apply? Which planets?
Well, they all apply. Kepler's laws apply to all the planets, and the ratios he gave are correct.
The retrogrades don't affect that the ratios.
That's a visual. That's a visual thing. That's not how they actually move. That's just a visual thing.
Got you. Okay, so now we've discussed enough where we could probably make a story out of this, like all the way from the very beginning and break it down, and so I'm trying to figure out, what we knew, what we measured. I understand they had a lot of data dating way back. Okay, so we could say, that it all started with basically the data from way back and from Tycho or Tycho Brahe, and then Kepler put together the ratios from them observations he
from the
figured out.
data.
So
Yes.
no matter what they are, them ratios will apply. No matter what we living on, them ratios are fair to say. Would you say that?
Yes, yes, and Newton showed that there has to be those ratios. We observed those ratios.
Wait,
and then
don't jump to Newton. Don't jump to
Well,
Newton.
I'm just pointing. Yes, he observed them, and then Newton showed they had to be those ratios.
Okay. And so Tycho, I mean, so then Kip or
Cassini
was the first one to triangulate to Mars.
I believe so. Yes.
And then so that gave him a distance. So then he was able to triangulate to the sun?
No.
Or measure the orbit?
Let's go through this again.
Yeah, do it.
Cassini used triangulation by observations from Paris and French Guiana. It's a very long baseline. He was then able to use that, but with simultaneous measurements to the distance. He was then able to use triangulation, basic triangulation. Although you
got the distance to Mars. Carry on.
Got the distance to Mars, and from the distance to Mars, then they used Kepler's laws because they then knew the absolute distance between orbit number 3 and orbit number 4, and then they knew the distance between these two things. They knew and then from Kepler's laws they could say, aha, because the Kepler gives you the ratio, but if you know the distance between two planets, you can then work them all out if you know the ratios between them all.
Wait, so Kepler's law must assume that the sun is stationary? Is that a given?
Yes, in effect, it's saying the sun is at the focus of the ellipses.
That was probably one of the big discoveries. Okay, and now, so we got the distance to Mars, and then and we know the sun's stationary. We applied the laws. So the laws, if we know the distance to Mars, and then what did they apply that to after?
Right. So having worked out the distance to Mars, and you know the ratios of the radii from Kepler's laws, if you know the absolute value between the distance between two orbits, you can then work out the absolute distances between to the sun. Because once you've got an absolute distance between one orbit and another orbit, you can then work out the absolute distance from all the other orbits, including from Earth to the sun.
Just from using Kepler's laws, and if we discover something changes, basically, then we have to apply everything according to the laws.
So we did not triangulate to the sun. You can't triangulate to the sun.
If Newton estimated the sun to be 1,000,000 miles away,
you're making this up.
I'm not saying it's right. Hold on. I'm not saying it's right. Just follow me real quick. So if he did, okay, or if somebody did, then they would misapply all the planets basically, but they would still be the same ratio, right?
Who cares? Someone made an error. Who cares? Cassini was the first one.
It's not like they got it right off the bat, so you're jumping a little bit because it's not like they got it right on the first try.
Well, Newton did. No, you're claiming Newton made a calculation. I don't think he did.
1,000,000 miles, if I'm correct. Maybe I'm not.
Rampus, 13 years before Cassini, there was a guy named Christian Huygens.
Yes, I mentioned this. I talked about Huygens. Yes, and he used yes, he
about
did
the
it.
same
Yeah, but he
error.
got it. Yeah, but he had to assume that the Earth was the same size as Venus, and so I'm dismissing that one. Although he got on that value that wasn't too bad, it was based on guesswork, and so I'm not using that as the first decent effort. I'm using Cassini.
It was a damn good guess, wasn't it?
It was a good. The actual result wasn't too bad, but it wasn't based on anything other than a guess about the size of Venus. So I don't want to introduce that one. I'm going to go with one that was determined using triangulation techniques rather than a guess about the size of Venus.
Oh, he guessed really good, didn't he?
Yes, it did turn out to be a reasonable guess, but it was lucky. So I'm not going to go with a lucky gun. I'm going to go with someone who did it from empirical and data that he was aware of.
Oh yeah, he guessed that Venus was roughly the size of the Earth, and he was roughly correct.
He was, but it was a guess.
But that was a lucky guess. You're right.
It was a damn good
so I don't want to include that. I don't want to include that in the process here. You know, Cassini did it properly, and he ended up with a better result than Huygens, and so I'm going to.
I don't think so.
So we had all the distances, we had all the orbits, we had the distances to the planets for the most part, and then we came up with Big G, with a value for Big G, right?
we came up with the big G from the work, effectively the fact value of big G, although it wasn't written down by the work that Cavendish did. And from that, you can then work out the mass of the sun once you've established that the distance of the sun.
And a shout out to Mr.
Now,
Malort for $4.99. Florida man shit can 600 years of mathematics. I think he's talking about you, Brian.
Yeah, I'm not shit canning nothing, man. I'm just trying to get an understanding of this. I don't know why. I'm trying to see what was fact, what was found out from observation, and I'm just trying to get my own understanding of this. I don't know why anybody thinks I'm trying to shit can anything. I do have a little problem with because I've always been under the understanding, you know, even before the subject, before the debate, I understood that it was 1,000,000 miles that Newton came up with 1,000,000 miles. I need to see where I even got that from, because that's been discussed.
I don't believe he did that. In fact, I've got something here that Newton did actually make an estimate of the mass of the sun, actually.
No, I'm talking about the distance. I didn't know.
Yeah, I know
so
you
did.
are, and that's why I'm saying.
Rarely hear
Here we go.
Newton.
So,
Wait.
so,
When was Galileo?
so this is what you might be thinking of, Brian. The first known estimate of the solar mass was by Isaac Newton. So we're not talking about the distance, we're talking about the mass in his work Principia, 1687, as Blue said. He estimated that the ratio of the mass of the Earth to the Sun was about 1,000. So he didn't know the mass of the Earth. So he only worked out a ratio. But later he worked out this value was based upon a faulty value of the solar parallax, which he used to estimate. Oh, he did use to estimate distance to the Sun. He corrected the ratio. So he used. So someone gave him a solar parallax. Okay, so he
and
did.
Yes, you're also correct. Newton did invent the reflecting telescope. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but being able to invent a telescope does not make you a good astronomer.
That was 1,000,000 miles, right, Rumpus?
No, it doesn't say anything. I cannot find any reference to what he thought it was. The only thing I've got here is the mass of the sun. But he was basically
more book burning, man. More book burning.
But he was using. This is the thing I was referring to earlier. He was using. Someone else had worked out some value of this, the solar parallax, and he was using that. So he wasn't his work really, but he did actually. So he did. It seems as though he did try and use the distance of the sun that somehow he got from somewhere to work out the mass of the sun using the method that I described. Where if you know big, no, but hold on, he needs no big G for that. Hold on, I got confused here. Again, he's using this ratio again here. Perhaps he worked out as a ratio. He worked it out as a ratio of the mass of the Earth. So yes, he didn't know what the mass of the Earth was. So he didn't need to know big G.
Well, as Clive Wells points out, Newton had an observatory at Trinity College. And that's true. And you're right. He did invent that reflecting telescope. But when you hear people talk about Newton, you rarely hear them talk about Newton's astronomical observations. Rarely. Usually we're talking about his law of gravitation and his laws of motion. That was my point.
Yeah, well, he did a hell of a lot else. It's amazing what that guy did. I mean, he worked out what pi was to a ridiculous number of decimal places. He also worked out, for instance, how there's also Newton's rings, loads of optics. I mean, he did an amazing amount. We shouldn't restrict him to just being
pull calculus together for us.
A calculus, yeah, of course, yeah.
That's probably part of his optics study.
Yeah.
So, hey, we can make a reflector. It's cheaper, easier, and can make them bigger.
Yeah, I mean, I know, I regard him as much more than just universal law of gravitation.
And it was amazing what he did with figs.
We don't need the mass of the Earth to get the mass of the sun, basically. We need the orbital period and the distance.
Well, he worked out a ratio. He worked out a ratio of the mass of the Earth to the Sun using this incorrect solar parallax value. So I don't think when we say we worked out the mass of the Sun, he just did it as a ratio of the Earth, a bit like old Cavendish and his flipping ratios. Everybody was using ratios of things. So, but he didn't know the mass of the Earth because Cavendish hadn't happened yet. So he wouldn't know what the mass of the Earth was.
Yeah, but you would need that.
But you would have thought somehow. I must be thinking that you would have thought you could work out the mass of the Earth from the orbit of the Moon, given that you knew what. If you knew.
That's what I'm saying. They already had a number worked out.
No, you don't. No, you don't have that. You know, you need big G again, don't you? No. Okay. No, it's all right.
You need the mass of the sun.
No, I was just thinking you could work out the mass of the Earth from knowing the period of the Moon around the Earth. But of course, again, you need to know big G, and of course, Newton didn't know big G because you could work out the distance to the. You could work out the distance to the Moon quite easily because we can do that with the triangulation again much easily than we can to Mars. But again, to do the thing I was describing earlier, you needed to know big G to work out the distance to the Sun. You needed to know, or the mass of the Sun. You needed to know the distance of the Sun, and you needed to know big G. Unfortunately, Newton didn't know what big G was, even though he effectively invented it. He had no. It was only when Cavendish came along did we have big G. So in fact, he couldn't work out the mass of the Earth just from the orbital period of the Moon around the Earth, because he didn't know what big G was. So yeah, explains. So we only knew. So it was only when Cavendish came along, effectively invented big G, did we then work out what the mass of the Earth was, or he worked out the density from which obviously you could work out the mass of the Earth. But we until Cavendish, we didn't know what the mass of the Earth was or the density of the Earth. We didn't know either of those two things.
So who's the first person to, or who's the first person to come up with 93 million? I know it changed after it was 90 million and went up to 114 and then back down. But who was the first person to come up with the 93 million milestone?
Well, I'm going to guess it was Cassini because that's the person I've been. Let me go and check on that. I'm guessing he came somewhere close to that. I don't know how close you want it to be.
It was about
how close
8%.
do you want it to? How close do you want it to be to 93 million miles to count?
Yeah, within about 5 million miles or so. I mean, whatever you think's fair.
I can't find bloody Cassini's bloody value. Ah.
It was 0.925, I think. Look up in astronomical unit in Wikipedia.
I'm trying to find how Cassini. Oh, bloody hell! Annoying me now. How do you spell Cassini? Am I making cock up? I'm getting all sorts of crap instead. What the hell? It was Cassini? I'm not going mad, am I? Cassini.
So by the transit of Venus, it was James Gregory and Edmund Halley realized the distance to Venus, and hence the sun could be determined.
I'm amazed, Alan, as someone who's such a linguistic highbrow, you called it Halley. It's Halley. There's no.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. A double L.
Yes. Because I was having a fight with someone about Halley's Comet, and I was pointing out that's coming to popular culture because of Bill Haley and the Comets.
Well, no, it's more like Halley is in Halle Berry.
Y'all each have one demerit.
I posted a table to live chat.
Right. Cassini was within 7% of the actual distance. He got within. So what was your criteria?
Yeah, man.
You said 5 million, didn't you? So is that 7%?
Cassini was the first to get that close?
I think. Let me just check.
That's kind of what I was shooting for. I was kind of shooting to see who was the first to get in the ballpark.
140 million kilometers apparently was his value. So let's just see what that. So it's against. So it's 140 over what was the actual value was 149, isn't it?
It is hard to believe that Kepler didn't even apply his own laws. That is weird, but I guess, man.
Apply to what?
What to do?
Apply
What
to the solar system?
In what way? He couldn't do it because he didn't have the absolute distance from the Earth to the Mars. He hadn't done what Cassini had done. Well, he couldn't do it. So how could he do something he can't do?
Well, at the time, what good was it? At the time,
it was just an observation. It's like saying, well, "Let's observe how many veins you've got in your leg."
Went into that, bro. A lot of work went into that.
Well, at the time, they were.
Write it down, bro. You're
Well,
totally
at the time, there was a debate.
What are you talking about?
At the time, there was a debate is the Earth the center or the Sun the center? And he settled it.
And he settled it by
Absolutely.
with the laws, with the ratios.
Yes.
Just the ratios alone settled it.
Just those laws settled it. He gave laws, not some jerky
Laws
motion
he didn't even
of
apply.
not some jerky motion of object in the sky.
No.
but
Wait. Is everybody good with that? So Kepler is the one who proved the sun was in the center by
No, he didn't.
ratio.
Kepler didn't do that. It was
See that, Chaika?
Copernicus that did that.
That's a demerit for Chaika.
Well, he did.
No. Kepler thought it was still geocentric.
Not
He didn't-
Kepler. Tycho thought it.
I think no. Kepler had some strange
Tycho
intermediate.
was half enough. He thought Earth is the
my God.
center, which the sun orbit around, and the planets orbit the sun.
Hold on, let me just.
Does Kepler's law? Is there a version of Kepler's law with the sun in motion?
I can't remember now.
Kepler's law: the sun is in the center.
Oh, sorry, you're right. Yes, Kepler agreed with Copernicus. Yes. Right.
All
So
right, I'll
it
take away
came up-
Chaika's demerit, and I'll give you. Now
Yes.
you got two demerits, Rumpus.
Yeah, sorry.
You can work them off though. You can work them off.
It was Tycho who had this half-baked thing. I thought it was Kepler, but no, it's
Tycho was biased. That's why he couldn't make sense of his data.
What about
Yeah.
what about that ratio proves that the sun's in the center? That's all I'm asking. Like, how does the ratio prove that the sun's in the center? It doesn't
Oh.
work with the geocentric because
He
I thought it
give
worked
you
both ways.
he give you laws of the motions of the planets. And if you check these laws to be true, then the sun must be at the center.
Yeah, but it's the same. You can you can equally apply them laws with the Earth in the center. You're just going to get.
No, you can't.
You're going to get all the same shit.
Because
basically.
the first law says that the sun is the center of every orbit.
They tried that,
Or-
Brian. They tried diligently to put the Earth at the center. And when you do, the planets have to do crazy frigging things, all kinds of goofy loop-de-loops.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they can orbit the sun, and the sun orbit the Earth. I mean, that's the way it worked. That's the way they, explained it.
It was Galileo that proved that we're heliocentric.
Yeah. How did he do? And did he come after Kepler? I don't see how ratios could prove. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out who was the first one to come up with proof that the or enough to verify the sun being in the center instead of in motion.
Well,
I
you
don't see
either
how
go
ratios
for
could do that.
the wacky orbits that just everything's shooting all over the shop, or you go for a sensible one where things are going around in ellipses. And sensible people thought, well, obviously the sensible one is to go with nice, smooth elliptical orbits.
I'm
rather
good with
than
the
these
ellipses, man. I'm good with the ellipses around the sun. But
if you don't put the Earth at the center, if you don't put the sun at the center, then you have all these weird and wacky motions of the planets with these strange epicycles. They're going all over the shop. The only thing that makes a nice, smooth model and obeys the laws of physics is the one with the sun at the center.
They make nice patterns, man. It ain't wacky. It's
It
like
is wacky.
geometric. It's pretty
Yeah,
neat.
but they're wacky. They're not justified by anything. They're just extremely wacky and not justified by any laws of physics.
What are you talking about?
If you put the Earth at the center, then you have all these strange motions that Brenda was talking about earlier. Mars going backwards and following all sorts of strange epicycles. So you have to put the sun at the center to give them a nice, smooth
It just
elliptical
loops
orbits.
around, man. It loops around. You ain't seen it. You ain't seen the like the time lapse model of the
Yeah,
motions.
and it's random. Yes, so you have to go
It's not
wacky
goofy,
to
man.
wacky.
It's not random.
It's wacky.
It's
They're going
geometric.
around in
though.
strange loops.
Well, don't
Yeah,
say
of
it's
course.
random, bro. That's not honest.
Okay, it's not. Well, it's okay. It's geometric, yes, but it's a peculiar, unnecessarily complicated.
I'll give you that.
compatible with
I'll
physics.
give you that. It's definitely more complicated.
Yeah, much more complicated. And yes, of course,
Yeah,
it's geometric. Nobody's
I
disputing it's
It's a more
geometric.
complicated model. They weren't ready for it.
Well, it doesn't work. It doesn't obey the laws of physics.
We need new laws then.
Occam's
No, we
razor
don't.
kicks in, Brian.
Yeah, that is
I
the
just fucking with
definition of
Rumpus, man.
wacky.
I just fucking with Rumpus, man.
I think I'm good.
But I still want to do the test, man. I think this is fair to say. You know, we've learned a lot. I have about the history.
Which
I'd still like to
test
have
you
this
doing
discussion
now?
again sometime, man. I
Which
think
test you doing now, Brian?
What test?
no, we need to do this one. Okay, so I think we should. I don't know if it's already been done, or maybe somebody could show me, or maybe it's something we could do. With the box and the balloon, we could do the heavy box, the metal box in water with something buoyant, like an egg or something, and
Holy
then do
shit.
the helium balloon in the box, the helium balloon falling in a box in a neutrally buoyant, as close as we can get balloon in a box. There are two balloons in a box, and then in the one that goes underwater, we'll use a ping pong ball, and we'll use an egg. Yeah, and a ping pong ball. That'd be fine.
Buy
One of
a
them buoyant
ticket.
and one of them neutral, right?
Buy a
So-
ticket to the Vomit Comet and try.
So somehow we went from the orbits of the planets to a balloon in a box again.
Well, I just kind of dating back, man. I can't stay that much longer. I was just kind of summarizing everything, and we can keep talking about planets and all that. But I just wanted to let me ask this before we do: is there anybody who can show right off the top of their head, or maybe a video of something neutrally buoyant, like in the zero gravity plane, or falling in air, or anything in water, showing it behave the same, or is it something we could do? We should do, is what I'm asking.
Well, when you're scuba diving, that's one of the first things that you learn to do or try to learn to do is to get neutral buoyancy, where you lay at the bottom of the swimming pool, like face down, and then you adjust the air in your BC, your vest, till you have just enough so that you come up off of the floor of the swimming pool and your toes are still touching it. And if you breathe in deeply, you'll go up a little bit. If you breathe out, you go down a little. That's neutral.
Sure. I'm talking about, but the only difference in explaining or trying to test is like of how something neutrally buoyant would it act the same as the medium of air? In other words, so something accelerating through the water, would something neutrally buoyant inside of that behave the same way as something accelerating in air that's neutrally buoyant? Because we talked about the balloon that's just got regular air in it, so that's as close to neutrally buoyant as we really need. And then the helium balloon. So we talked about it going forward and accelerating down. And I was under the impression that the helium balloon falling down would go to the top of the balloon. Is that right, Rumpus? The helium balloon in air that's falling down will go against acceleration.
Well,
right?
this depends again on this free fall business. So if the thing that's falling is falling at the little g, i.e. 9.8 meters per second, then it will not. There would be no buoyancy effects. But immediately, you actually made this point, I think, with the air resistance. Well, you didn't make quite this point. But you point out the air resistance issue. If it's not falling at the with little g and it's going more slowly because of air resistance, then you will get buoyancy effects inside your box. So unfortunately, it's going to be quite tricky to get your box, if you're going to do a falling one, to fall without air resistance. You basically need a vacuum to make something fall, or make it a very heavy box made out of lead or something, so that it's not affected by air resistance. Immediately you're slowed down by air resistance, then you will get buoyancy effects inside it.
So let me ask you this: can it be propelled? I mean, if it's hit terminal velocity within a few seconds or whatever, and it maintains that?
That's bad. You see, if you have a terminal velocity, that you can't have that.
Accelerating?
Now, if you have a terminal velocity, that means it's not accelerating, which means it's not accelerating. It's got to be continuously accelerating with the rate of little g, i.e. 9.81 meters per second. If it's not accelerating downwards, i.e. it reaches a terminal velocity, then you will get buoyancy effects inside your box.
If there is an acceleration, though, even if it hits wind, it should still it should still accelerate. It should just maybe
Yeah, but
accelerate
it's not
slower,
accelerating enough.
right?
I'll say it for the third time.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
It
I see what
has to
you're saying.
accelerate with free fall acceleration. It must not reach a terminal velocity. It must be able to carry on accelerating over the period you wish to make the observation, although that's obviously impossible. But if the period you've got to observe it over has got to be the period in which it is executing a free fall at the full rate of little g. If it's not accelerating downwards due to air resistance, then you will get buoyancy effects inside your
And if it did, let's say we had it in if it did free fall in air, okay,
Yeah.
or let's just discuss.
So you made it very heavy, or you didn't a vacuum, yeah. Then you
Well,
would
we're
not
not going to
get
do it in a vacuum because we're using a medium. I don't
yeah.
want to.
Okay, if you made it very heavy, if you made a
reality.
lead container, if you made a lead container that and you drop that, then you would be able to make the air resistance negligible. Then it would accelerate, continue to accelerate, and then if you had your helium balloon inside it alongside another balloon, then the helium balloon would not exhibit buoyancy effects. It would, if you attach it to the bottom and then released it, it would not go to the top. It would just stay where it is.
So if it was in the middle,
it would do the same. It would stay wherever it was.
What if we had something neutrally buoyant that was just floating in the middle? Next to the helium balloon.
Everything. If you had it free falling, everything would stay where it was.
Okay, well, just hold on. I want to still explain it. As if we have a neutrally buoyant balloon and a helium balloon in the center of the big ass box. So anybody picturing a little box, get that out of your head right now. I know everybody's stop doing that. Picture a box about the size of a car. Okay, so we have a helium balloon in the middle and a perfectly buoyant, a little tiny bit of helium in the air, just to get a perfectly buoyant. So when it's air, it's right in the middle. So then right when we drop it, we cut the string to the helium balloon and the lead box, and it accelerates down. So you're saying that either one of them will move any at all? Both.
That's correct. They both remain stationary with respect to one another. Yes, the helium balloon would not go to the top of the car you're talking about and touch the top. No, it would stay where it was. It would behave exactly like the neutral balloon.
Okay, and if a car on the ground had this similar, now you got to be perfect, but a box and a trailer, whatever, in a car laterally, if we accelerate it, then the balloon will just have up and down buoyancy. It'll stay right in the middle.
Sorry,
the helium balloon and the regular balloon will both stay right horizontally, right?
So we're talking about horizontally now, are we?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Neutrally buoyant would stay exactly where it was. A helium balloon would go would go in the direction of travel, in preference to the it would move forward like it does in the that video that there is of some chap accelerating his car. The helium balloon would go forwards.
So it's not the same.
No, because you're not, as I explained to you earlier, one of the very first things I explained to you, how it's very different what happens in a car, because you're pushing on one side. The air, when you accelerate, collects at the back of the car because you're pushing on it from the rear, so you're pushing all those molecules together and you'll get a density gradient. Whereas in gravity, all the molecules are being accelerated not by something pushing them, they're all being individually accelerated to the ground by the force of gravity.
So in a vacuum, it would on the ground, if we'd have to do a vacuum, I guess. And then what would happen to the balloons when you took off? If it wasn't attached.
Are we going horizontally, vertically? I haven't got this latest scenario.
We're going horizontal now, and it's not attached, and the car takes off.
Right, and we've now got a vacuum inside our car. Did you say?
Yep. We cut the string.
Obviously,
right when acceleration starts.
Well, if there's no vacuum in there, then the balloon will not be. There'll be nothing pushing on the balloon, and it would hit both of them would hit the back of the neutral one and the well, they wouldn't be floating, would they? They'd be they wouldn't be floating. They'd be if they was in a vacuum, they'd both be on the floor of the car, and then they would roll to the back as you accelerated because there's no air pushing them one way or the other. The only thing can push them is the back of the car, so they would roll back to the back of the car as the car accelerated to one side. The neutral and the helium balloon would accelerate in exactly the same way relative to the car, because they'd effectively maintain their position, and the car would then accelerate, and the back of the car would then hit them both at the same time, and then that would then cause them to go to follow. Then they would follow the car at the back of it, because there's no. You've said there's a vacuum in there.
Right. Well, now if we so if we're dropping something and with a vacuum, you said it wouldn't move nowhere. It would just stay the same. That's because it's going with
So
the acceleration.
we're dropping something now with a chamber with a vacuum in it. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah. Why not?
Right. So okay. So your helium balloon and your air neutral balloon would both be at the bottom of lying on the bottom of this thing because there's a vacuum in there. So then when you drop it, they would then both carry on being at the bottom of the and this time it wouldn't make any difference because you've got a vacuum. It wouldn't matter whether how quickly it was accelerating. They would both remain at the bottom of the thing no matter what accelerated. It wouldn't make any difference.
So what if we started them in the middle?
Guys.
What if we started them in the middle and cut the strings?
Well, you can't. Well, they're not floating. You can't have something floating in a vacuum.
No. Sorry, I think Blue's trying to say something.
Yeah, at this point, we can go around in circles forever. And you guys are more than welcome to.
Yeah, we're learning something though, Blue.
Yeah. Well, I'm learning that I'm getting hungry, and I'm going to stop the YouTube stream at this point. I want to say thanks to everybody that joined today. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks for all the super chats. And with that, I'm going to terminate the stream. You guys say night to YouTube.
Yeah, that was fun, man. That was fun.
Yeah, see you guys
Not
next time.
YouTube.